My sister insisted on June 20th for her baby shower. Even I said it clashed with my anniversary. So I took my trip and watched her struggle without me. Audrey, 27, my 30 female sister, lives 3 hours from me and has for 3 years. After I married Luke 3 years ago, we became less connected. Audrey and Luke were incompatible. She thought I was rushing into marriage because Luke and I dated for 10 months before getting engaged. Several times. She said I barely knew him and should wait. I wasn't concerned then. I thought she'd change her mind after seeing how happy we were. The wedding was small. Maybe 45 people attended. My bridesmaid Audrey spent most of the reception in the bar with her then boyfriend Dylan. My aunt said Audrey appeared bored during the ceremony. I ignored it because weddings are long and not everyone likes sitting through them. Audrey and I spoke possibly monthly after the wedding. She moved for work, so we saw each other less. A year after my wedding, she dumped Dylan for Henry. I only met Henry at a family Christmas meal 1.5 years ago. He seemed friendly but quiet. Audrey told me they were serious, but never disclosed their connection. From here, everything went wrong. Audrey contacted me unexpectedly on a Tuesday night 7 months ago. So she told me she was pregnant, honored her, and inquired about Henry. She said they were together but he worked a lot. She switched topics when I asked if they were getting married. I should have noticed that was weird. Audrey requested my baby shower planning assistance a few weeks after that call. She stated our mom worked too much, and our sister Caroline lived out of state. I replied, "Sure. A project would be wonderful." We started planning via video call. Audrey suggested June 20th for the baby shower during that call. My wedding anniversary. I informed her. Luke and I planned a weekend getaway for our 5th anniversary. A milestone. We reserved an upstate property with a non-refundable deposit. Audrey paused before saying the date was best for her schedule and Philip's out-of-town family. I proposed the weekend before or after. No, it had to be that weekend since Philip's mom could only come that weekend, and she wanted his family there. I said it was my wedding anniversary. The baby was her first and she has anniversaries every year. I'd help plan it, but I couldn't attend if it stayed on that date. She snapped and stated she thought I'd want to be present for her life's big events. She ended the call. Mom called me the next day. She claimed Audrey was upset, and I should rethink. I told him about the cabin, deposit, and months of preparation with Luke. My parents let me reschedule with Luke, but Audrey couldn't, because of Philip's family. When I inquired why Philip's family schedule was more important than my marriage, she stated I was being unreasonable. Luke and I discussed it that night. He suggested we could move our trip if it meant that much to my family, but I could tell he didn't want to. We'd both like to leave. We needed time together after his demanding job. I said our plans wouldn't change. I texted Audrey that I'd help prepare and donate to the shower, but I wouldn't attend if she kept it on June 20th. She sent a long note saying I'd always been selfish and never supported her. She repeated that I didn't involve her in my wedding planning. It wasn't. I invited her to select flowers, but she replied she was busy. Her comment also stuck with me. She said that Luke changed me and I cared more about him than my family. She said I was entertaining before marriage but now uninteresting and just cared about my spouse. I ignored that message. I sent her $250 via Venmo for the shower, and hoped everything went well. She didn't reply. My mom called again 2 weeks later. She stated Audrey was having difficulties finding a shower host since I stopped helping. I reminded her that I would help arrange it but not attend my anniversary. Audrey required a home host since the venue she picked was too pricey, my mom remarked. Audrey requested it at my house. My backyard is vast and my house is decent. I refused my mom's family gatherings despite hosting them. Hosting meant I had to be there. And I wasn't going to cancel my anniversary plans. I felt silly arranging my house for a party and leaving. Mom stated I was unreasonable. She stated Audrey arranged the date so Philip's family could come, and his mother was involved and wanted to be there. Considering his mom's rigid schedule, I asked Audrey why she couldn't celebrate with Philip's family on a different date. My mom remarked I didn't realize Audrey's pregnant struggle. That surprised me. Audrey didn't discuss the pregnancy's difficulty. I asked what was going on and my mom was unclear. Audrey was worried and struggling with a lot, she added. My mom maintained there were no medical issues, only pregnant symptoms. Caroline called next. She said Audrey felt hurt after talking to her. Caroline replied she understood my stance but could we compromise? Caroline didn't know what compromise would work. She just stated that families should help each other. I felt insane. I requested nothing unreasonable. I offered planning and funding. Everyone was behaving like I was doing a terrible crime against my sister. But I just wanted to keep my anniversary plans. Luke ordered me to cease talking to them. We should follow our plans, he replied. He noted that Audrey had never tried much with us as a couple. We invited her several times but she didn't come. She rarely spoke to Luke during family functions. He thought she wanted me to prove I'd pick her over him. Audrey texted me, my mom, Caroline, and our Aunt Jessica a week before the baby shower. She told me she was disappointed in me for leaving her at a crucial time. She stated good sisters support one another and she thought I didn't care about her or her baby. She said she'd know where I was if I skipped the shower. Without responding, I quit the group chat. Luke and I traveled. Excellent weekend. Hiking, cooking dinner at the cabin, and relaxing were our activities. My phone was off for most of it. After turning it on Sunday night, I had 37 unread messages. Most were from my departed group chat. Mom asked me where I was. Caroline attempted mediation. Audrey wrote me multiple messages calling me selfish, and said I ruined her shower by focusing on me. Aunt Jessica privately advised me to apologize. There were also texts from my dad, who avoids family strife. He advised me to call Audrey since she cried in the shower. Audrey had to explain why I chose my anniversary over her baby shower when people kept asking where I was. I didn't call Audrey. I emailed my dad back that I offered to help in every way except attending my anniversary and that Audrey chose the date knowing I couldn't. No baby shower for me. I learned from the texts that 25 people attended at my mom's place. Philip's mother reportedly spoke about her excitement expecting her first grandson. Audrey tagged everyone except me in social media photos. That was 4 weeks ago. Audrey and I haven't spoken since. Mom has called twice to ask when I'll apologize. Caroline emailed me an article about sibling dispute resolution. I haven't answered either. Audrey's designing the nursery is difficult because Philip works late most evenings. My mom told me last week, she suggested I drive up and paint or assemble furniture. No, I said. She asked why I punished Audrey for one argument. No punishment, I said. I didn't want to go 5 hours round trip to help someone who labeled me selfish for keeping my anniversary plans. Luke suggests I take a break from their calls. He thinks people won't grasp my perspective. Therefore, I'll keep being furious. He's probably right. But these are my family. My dad is the only one who hasn't pressured me, but he hasn't claimed I was right either. I keep thinking about it. Was it wrong to not shift my plans? Should I have calmed down and showered? Everyone says I should have, but I think giving in would have formed a pattern where Audrey's needs come first. No idea what's next. Audrey's due within 4 months. I expect to visit the infant, help, and appear normal. Part of me wants to help. Another part of me thinks reaching out first will prove her right and me wrong. Update 1. I wasn't planning to update, but things happened that must be reported. Audrey gave birth 4 weeks ago. A boy. My mom texted me during labor and after the kid was born. She sent pics. I regarded them. It looked like a baby. I ignored my mom's texts about how gorgeous he was and how I needed to meet my nephew soon. Caroline called me the day Audrey returned from the hospital. Audrey needs help breastfeeding and sleeping, she added. I approached Philip for assistance. Caroline paused and stated Philip was there, but had to work. I thought that was challenging, but I wasn't driving there. Caroline wondered if I would harbor a grudge against my nephew. I didn't harbor a grudge against anyone, including the baby. But I wouldn't lie and say Audrey was okay. Caroline stated Audrey was too weary to handle our difficulties, and I should be the larger person. Luke asked her what she wanted after we hung up. He shook his head and said they were unbelievable when I informed him. Audrey had Philip and his family and a baby shower with gifts and encouragement, he said. Why did I have to abandon everything to help her? Mom called that weekend. After living with Audrey for a week, she needed to return to work. She requested my assistance for a few days. No, I said. She cried on the phone. She asked why I was doing this, and claimed Audrey needed family. Audrey had family. She had Henry, and his mother was involved in the baby shower. My mom mentioned Henry's mother returned home and he worked 12-hour shifts. I wondered why Henry worked so much after his baby was born. My mother stated they needed cash. That was the first hint of money issues. Asking what was happening, my mom hesitated and stated Audrey and Henry were struggling to pay rent. She stated that Audrey wasn't working and Henry's job paid less than expected. My mom stated Henry couldn't afford paternity leave when I inquired. That talk seemed odd. Luke agreed after we discussed it. He thought the narrative had more to it. I called Dad. My dad is always more direct than my mom. He sighed when I asked about Audrey and Henry. Henry was staying less at the flat, he added. Henry was missing when my dad visited Audrey and the baby. Audrey said at work, although it was 10 Saturday night. I asked my dad about Henry's infidelity. He wasn't sure, but something seemed wrong. He also informed me Audrey requested money for her rent this month. Despite worrying about next month, he gave it to her. Audrey called me 3 days following this talk with my dad. Called, not texted. Instead of not answering, I did. She invited me to stay for a week. She said my mom worked and couldn't do this alone. Where was Henry? He was working, she claimed. What time did he get home from work? Day to day, she said. I asked her directly if Henry lived with her. She was quiet for ages. She said he was staying with his friend after a quarrel. I asked when they fought. She said 3 weeks back. After the birth, 3 weeks ago. Asking what they thought. It was complicated, she remarked. I stated I had time to listen. She defensively denied calling me about Henry. She called for baby help. I told her I couldn't leave for a week, and that Henry, the baby's father, needed to resolve things. She accused me of cruelty. She stated she took care of me and I couldn't do the same for her. I asked when she helped me. She couldn't respond. She said I was touching her face and that my marriage was fine but hers was failing. Audrey and Henry weren't simply fighting. I realized. Whether they were together anymore. She cried and hung up. With my phone in hand, I tried to figure out what occurred. Luke came in and I told him about the call. His impression was that Henry left Audrey immediately after the birth. I called it insane. He stated insane things happen often. That night, Caroline called. Audrey informed her I didn't help, and made Henry seem worse. I replied I didn't affect her. Just questions. Caroline advised me to be more sensitive. I asked Caroline about Henry leaving. Yes, she said. I inquired why nobody told me. Audrey felt ashamed when she stated it wasn't their business to tell me. I requested Caroline to help Audrey. Caroline stated she couldn't take time off work. I inquired why I could take time off but not her. Since I worked from home, she said it was easier. I told her I had duties even though I worked from home. My mom called again the next day. She stated, Audrey informed her about our talk. She stated I kicked Audrey when she was down. Audrey couldn't answer my simple Henry location questions. Audrey didn't need judgment just now, my mom explained, because Henry's position was complicated. I asked my mom if I should go up there and play house with Audrey, and pretend everything was normal. She asked me to help my sister, who had a baby alone. I argued Audrey's choices caused the problem, including having a baby with someone who wasn't dedicated. My parents felt I was nasty, and had changed since marriage. I heard that from family twice. Audrey first, then mom. I inquired about her meaning. She remarked, I used to care about family, and now I only cared about Luke and myself. I disagreed. Not only did I care about my family, but also my life and marriage. I was branded selfish for offering to help with the baby shower, except for my anniversary. Audrey wanted me to abandon everything and stay with her for a week, and I was considered heartless for not doing so. Audrey had a newborn, so my mom said this was different. I stated Audrey's baby's father should help. Men don't always step up. My mom said. Not my problem to repair. We haven't talked since that call. 1 week ago. Dad came over for dinner 2 nights ago. Audrey was returning to my parents, he remarked. Henry had said he wouldn't return, and she couldn't afford the flat without him. Henry allegedly told Audrey he felt stuck and never wanted kids. He promised to pay child support but wouldn't become involved. I wondered why Audrey had a baby with a child-averse man. Audrey thought Henry would change his mind when the kid was delivered, said my dad. I said that plan was bad. My dad agreed, but claimed nothing could be done. He asked whether I'd visit Audrey at my parents' house when she settled in. I agreed to consider. He understood why I was distant. But Audrey was my sister. I knew it, but I couldn't keep fixing things for her, especially since she never apologized for her treatment. My dad stated Audrey was proud and wouldn't apologize. I stated we were deadlocked. That wasn't disputed. Luke and I discussed it that night. He advised me not to contact out because my family was pressing me. If I wanted a relationship with Audrey and my nephew, it should be because I actually wanted it, not because I felt obligated. I don't know what I want yet. Henry leaving with a newborn is terrible for Audrey. But part of me still hates the baby shower and how she's treated Luke and me. I'm sick of being called the issue for trying to set boundaries. Update 2. Audrey moved in with my dad 3 months ago. My mom routinely shares baby photos on social media. She tags photographs with blessings like raising her grandson and family being everything. I understand the posts are for me. Caroline visited last month. After calling me, she stated Audrey asked about me. What did she want to know? Caroline said Audrey wanted to know if I would meet the baby. I asked Caroline what she said. She promised Audrey I'd return. Not sure if that's true. Mom texted me 4 weeks ago asking whether I'd attend the baby's baptism. First time hearing about a baptism. I remained silent. She texted the date and location 3 days later. I remained silent. Last week. She called. She asked how many people were coming to give the caterer a head count. Attending wasn't my plan. Why not? I explained Audrey, and I hadn't spoken in months, and I wouldn't pretend everything was good at a family function. My mom stated the baptism was about the baby, not Audrey and me. I stated the infant wouldn't remember anyone. My absence will be remembered, she added. I accepted that. She warned me I'd regret it. She suggested it would be too late if I wanted a relationship with my nephew. I told Audrey could locate me if she wanted me in her son's life. My mom hung up silently. The baptism was yesterday. I stayed. Instead, Luke and I hiked. Luke commented that a pair with a baby carrier on the route appeared exhausted. I said so. We both agreed we weren't rushing to have kids. I received texts from Caroline and Aunt Jessica about missing the baptism when we returned home. Caroline said Audrey seemed upset when she inquired whether I was coming. Aunt Jessica stated I was stubborn and harming everyone. Both mails were erased without reply. Audrey then messaged me. She wished I'd come. She claimed she would have valued it. She didn't grasp my hatred for her. Staring at that message was long. I repeatedly typed an answer and deleted it. Finally, I replied that I didn't hate her. She never showed up for me, so I was tired of being expected to. My anniversary baby shower was highlighted. I said she'd never tried with Luke. I described how she branded me selfish, and then wanted me to sacrifice my life for her. Within minutes, she replied. She admitted she botched the baby shower, but she was pregnant, worried, and confused. Not to hurt me, she said. She stated Henry leaving made her realize how important family was, and she didn't want to lose me. I didn't know how to respond. I showed Luke the messages. He thought Audrey was lonely, wanted her sister back, and wasn't accepting responsibility for her actions. He said being pregnant and worried was an excuse. I deliberated for 3 days. I texted Audrey back. I appreciated her reaching out, but I wanted more than an explanation for her actions. I needed her to understand and apologize for the hurt. I told her to stop acting like Luke was the problem when he never hurt her. She didn't reply for a week. When she did, she apologized for scheduling the baby shower on my anniversary. She stated she should have picked a different day, but she didn't believe it was fair for me to involve Luke, because her difficulties with him were distinct. I inquired about her concerns with him. He took me from my family, she said. Not across the country, but an hour from my folks. I quit my job before meeting Luke. It wasn't distance, she said. She said I changed after marriage and became someone she didn't recognize. Asking how I changed, she listed. I called her less. I visited less. I neglected her. I noted that she didn't call, visit, or make time for me. She stated that was different since I got married and moved on while she was still sorting things out. Audrey believed I'd leave her by marrying. She believed I favored Luke. Nothing I said would change her thinking because she believed it. I told her I loved Luke without apologizing. I tried to incorporate her in my life with him, but she refused. She expressed her opinions about my marriage, and was now suffering with the consequences. She said I choose him again. My pleasure and calm were my choice. Differences existed. Since then, no texts. That was 3 weeks ago. Dad called me yesterday. He said Audrey was struggling with being a single mom and living with them again. He said my mom helped but controlled Audrey's baby rearing. He said the house was always tense. I asked him to recommend reaching out. He stated only if I wanted to, not because I should. He acknowledged my position, and didn't blame me for staying away. Despite the difficulty, he was proud of me for setting boundaries. My dad probably didn't realize how much the talk meant to me. This was the first time my relatives had acknowledged they understood my perspective without hitting me. Luke inquired whether my dad conversation made me feel better. Said I did. He asked if I would contact Audrey. No, I said. Once he agreed. We left it. Update 3. I'm posting this final update to answer questions and conclude this chapter for myself. Audrey left my parents' house last month. She moved to a small apartment near work and put the baby in daycare. Dad gave her a deposit and first month's rent. My mom resisted him because she wanted Audrey to stay with him longer. Audrey told Dad she couldn't live with my mom longer. My dad told me this 4 weeks ago when he came for dinner. He said my mom was mad at him for Audrey leaving. Despite home tensions, he thought Audrey made the correct choice. He advised Audrey to become self-sufficient rather than dependent on her parents. Caroline texted me 2 weeks ago wondering about Audrey. No. I said. Audrey had come out to her for help. She added. Caroline requested me to talk to Audrey if she called. I didn't know. Caroline believed Audrey had evolved from everything. I didn't reply. Audrey called 5 days later. We were invited to coffee. I agreed to consider. She wanted to try even though I wasn't ready. I promised to inform her. Luke and I discussed it. He said I could meet Audrey, but I should be clear about what I want from a relationship. He stated I needed to recognize my limits or I'd repeat the process. I contemplated it for 3 days. I then listed what Audrey required from me to have a relationship. I needed her to quit blaming Luke for my changes. I wanted her to honor my marriage. I wanted her to own her choices without excuses. I needed her to realize I didn't live for her. I texted her that I'd meet for coffee. But I had to say something first. She replied. Okay. We met yesterday at a coffee shop halfway between us. She looked drained. My mom had the baby. I brought out my list when we sat down and had drinks. Each point was reviewed. Without interrupting, she listened. She paused after I finished. She stated she wouldn't always agree with my choices, but she'd respect them. She admitted it was unfair that she put her needs before mine. She said Henry leaving made her realize how she'd handled her loved ones. Asking about Luke particularly. She didn't mind Luke's character. She complained about feeling left behind after I married. She knew Luke and I weren't to blame, but she made it theirs since she didn't know how else to handle it. I inquired about her therapy. Yes, she said. She started going a month ago after my dad advised it. She stated it helped her process a lot. I didn't comment. We chatted for an hour. Not warm or easy. Our chats were honest for the first time in years, despite occasional long silences. Finally, she requested if she could email me baby images. Yes, I said. I was invited to meet him. I said maybe later. But I wasn't ready. I understand. She replied. I haven't seen her since that coffee meetup, but she sent me 3 baby pictures. I wasn't responding but looked at them. I'm not ready for regular contact. Luke says I can move at my own pace. Mom is still mad at me. She told my dad I was torturing Audrey and the baby by being away. My dad told her otherwise, but she didn't listen. I probably have the worst relationship with my mom. That may not alter. Caroline has abandoned mediation. Last week, she apologized for pressing me and said she understood why I needed distance. I appreciate it. Audrey and I's future connection is unknown. Our closeness has deteriorated. We're chatting more than before. But I don't know if we will again. Luke inquired if I was happy or disappointed about the outcome. I said both. He found that reasonable. Everything from the past 7 months is on my mind. The baby shower, fights, baptism I didn't attend, Audrey and my sluggish communication recovery. I'm glad I set limits. If I'd given in, I'd have lost respect for myself, and Luke would have recognized that I'd put my family before our marriage. I now see Audrey was coping with more than I understood. Henry leaving after the baby was born was cruel. While her life fell apart, mine remained stable. I don't defend her behavior, but I now understand why she was desperate for help and outraged when I declined. Audrey and I won't be close soon. Maybe in a few months, I'll meet my nephew. My mom and I will have boundaries. The friendship I rebuilt with my dad will continue. I'll keep prioritizing my marriage because it's important to me. People keep asking if I did right by skipping the baby shower. Still think I did. That decision shaped everything else. I'd cave on everything if I caved on my anniversary. You must sometimes establish a line and see who follows it. Audrey initially disregarded it, but now she does. Best result I could have hoped for. Move on to the next story. Story 2. The company hired my best friend, thanks to my spouse. I saw them at a hotel on a business trip 8 months later. I was frozen in the hotel lobby. I walked a few blocks the night before my major presentation to clear my brain. I was surprised to see my spouse, Miles, 31M, and best friend, Grace, 30F, enter the same hotel. Watching them check in, I hid behind a large potted plant, my heart beating. He held his hand on her petite back as they took the elevator after the receptionist gave them a keycard. I thought I'd become sick. Miles and I, 32F, have been together 9 years and married 4 years. We met in college, and I always felt we were close. Like every couple, we had ups and downs, but nothing serious. No major conflicts or trust difficulties. We cherished our time together, worked hard, and shared home duties. Miles has always been quiet. Instead of going to parties, he loves staying in, watching movies, and having game nights with our small group of friends. With me, he opened up about his feelings, which he rarely did. I believed he was. My best buddy Grace is from high school. We kept in touch while attending different colleges. When we returned home 3 years ago, our friendship was as fresh as ever. Maid of honor at my wedding, she helped me relocate into our house. I called her for guidance or simply to talk. Miles and Grace were friendly but never close. They chatted at parties, but that was it. Grace was laid off from a marketing agency 10 months ago due to restructuring. Finding something new in her field was difficult. Miles, a project manager at a prominent software company, informed me of their marketing opening. I advised Miles to recommend Grace. He was initially cautious to mix personal and business ties, but I persuaded him. I expected they would be in different departments. Most notable campaigns involved close collaboration between marketing and project management. Miles and Grace worked on many projects over 8 months. They started carpooling to work because they live near the office. I was initially pleased with their good relations. Grace was dating someone, making our infrequent double dates less awkward. Miles started acting differently about 3 months ago. He worked late more often. He sent fewer, shorter texts. He gave unclear responses and swiftly moved the subject when I asked about his day. He stopped telling me the little things about work. He said it was just a difficult project deadline when I asked whether everything was okay. Grace also broke up with her lover. She called crying one night. So I brought ice cream and wine to her house. Miles was strangely unsupportive, suggesting I was enabling her, and she should handle her breakup herself. It was unlike him. He was constantly sympathetic to our pals in trouble. Get to this week. An important client presentation required me to travel to Philadelphia. Despite the 2-day travel, the presentation was vital to my career. Miles seemed odd when I informed him about the trip, suggesting I postpone or find someone else. After I asked why, he stated he was afraid about me traveling alone. I've gone for work many times without problems, so his fear seemed odd. I watched my spouse and closest buddy enter an elevator in a Philadelphia hotel lobby from behind a plant. I wanted to chase them and confront them, but my legs wouldn't move. Instead, I went back to my hotel, threw up in the bathroom, and spent the night staring at the ceiling, unsure what to do. I delayed confronting them. I had a presentation the next day and wanted to think straight. Autopilot got me through the lecture. My coworkers praised me for success, oblivious that I was falling apart. I checked our phone records on the trip home. Miles and Grace exchanged hundreds of texts over the preceding few months, frequently late at night when Miles said he was working. I also saw multiple purchases on our credit card for eateries I had never eaten at on nights. Miles stated he was working late. Miles was usual when I got home. He inquired about my presentation and travel. I answered briefly, studying his expression for guilt. Nothing existed. He appeared unfazed after spending the night with my best buddy in Philadelphia. I mentioned it after dinner. I placed my phone on the table with a screenshot of our phone record displaying all his texts with Grace. First Miles looked at the TV, then me. The color left his face. I inquired about its duration. He initially denied it, saying they were work texts. I informed him I saw them at the hotel, and he went silent. He acknowledged they had been cheating for 3 months after what felt like hours. Miles says it began with carpooling and business meals. They started messaging non-work topics. Dinners followed drinks to discuss projects after work. They crossed the boundary one night. He said he tried to end it multiple times but failed. He never intended it. Loved me. And had feelings for Grace. I wondered if he would have told me if I hadn't caught them. Looking aside and not responding was enough. I told him to leave the house. He insisted that we needed to discuss this to resolve things. I reminded him he had time to discuss it before sleeping with my best friend. He left with a bag. I don't care where he went. I haven't contacted Grace. I want to face her, yell at her, and ask how she betrayed me. But another part of me understands, there's no explanation that would lessen this pain. My choices will be discussed with a lawyer next week. Although Miles and I don't have children, we own a house, savings, and investments. Our marriage may not survive. It's unclear if I want it. What I'm looking for is unclear. Support, advice. Guess I needed to put it all somewhere. My world has fallen, and I'm attempting to go forward. Update 1. My previous post was 3 weeks ago, and much has transpired. First, thanks to everyone who offered advice and support. Your letters made me feel less alone during my worst days. Miles slept at a hotel for a week after leaving that night. I changed our house locks and packaged most of his clothes and belongings. While working, I left them in the garage for him to pick up. We solely talked about practical topics via SMS. Grace started calling and messaging me non-stop, 2 days after he left. She generated fresh email addresses to contact me after I banned her number. She came to my house one night. I didn't enter. Instead, I filmed her beating on my door and yelling through the mail slot to explain. Later, I transmitted the video to her parents, who always treated me like a daughter. They were appalled by her actions and agreed to discuss respecting my boundaries. Miles invited me to talk a week following my discovery. I arranged to meet at a public coffee shop where I could leave. Unwashed hair and black shadows under his eyes made him appear horrible. I nearly felt sorry for him. Almost. He apologized for his biggest error and promised to remedy it. Listening without interruption, he blamed work stress, feeling neglected due to my long hours and Grace's persistent pursuit. Then I left. He grabbed my arm to stop me, and I shouted to let go. After several coffee shop patrons looked, he released me and apologized sincerely. I told him I simply wanted to discuss our divorce. He sobbed and begged. I left after giving him my lawyer's number. A stranger called me later that day. Grace's mother requested a visit. I agreed because I've always loved and admired her. She brought my favorite homemade lasagna, and a sincere apologies for her daughter's actions. She said Grace told her everything, and that she wasn't apologizing for her daughter's behavior. She also said something that paused me. Grace reportedly has jealousy issues since high school. I always thought we had a fair connection. But Grace's mother said I eclipsed her intellectually and socially. This didn't justify her behavior. But it explained why she targeted my spouse. I checked our home computer the day after meeting Grace's mother. Miles always managed our combined finances, saying he liked numbers. What I found startled me. He had been transferring $250 and $350 from our combined savings to a separate account for months. The amount was approximately $18,000. When questioned via text, he said it was for a surprise anniversary trip. Our anniversary was 8 months away. I also found 7 months of communications between Miles and Grace, before the 4 months he admitted to. The relationship wasn't romantic at initially, but it grew beyond borders. They made inside jokes about coworkers, moaned about their relationships, including me, and planned more time together. Miles' email to Grace stood out. He stated how nice it was to chat to someone who understood him, indicating I never did. That hurt almost as much as the physical betrayal. I finally met with them 2 weeks after discovery. With my brother for support. Each requested this meeting, claiming they wanted closure. I decided to listen to them once and then move on. We met at my brother's. Grace arrived first, then Miles. Despite being personal enough to damage my marriage and our friendship, they sat awkwardly apart. First, Grace spoke. She said the affair lasted 7 months, not 4, as Miles claimed. About 5 months ago, it started emotionally, and became bodily. She said it was great to be appreciated when her partner dumped her. But she never intended it. She hated herself for hurting me and loved me like a sister. Even Miles's tale changed. He said Grace chased him aggressively, and he tried to resist, but was flattered. He felt inferior after my promotion and raise, which raised my pay above his. He revealed that he hid money not for a trip, but to protect himself from my departure. Their stories had major discrepancies. I brought this out, and they looked confused and frustrated. It was evident they hadn't coordinated their stories, each attempting to seem good. After remaining silent, my brother asked them a simple question. If you truly cared about her, why are you here making excuses instead of giving her the space she requested? Both had a good reply. After the encounter, they parted ways. A few days later, a coworker told me Miles and Grace were chastised for their inappropriate connection. Employee connections were allowed, but HR had to be informed, which they hadn't done. Grace's projects with Miles received more resources and attention, leading to charges of favoritism. A transfer to the company's Seattle office was confirmed by Miles' SMS yesterday. He said it was to give me space, but I think it was to save his career after the HR difficulties. Asked if this affected us. I informed him that divorce proceedings would continue regardless of location. Grace, according to mutual acquaintances, has been spinning a different story, claiming Miles chased her constantly, and that she ended things when she understood how serious it was. She's also been contacting our pals individually, to preserve their relationships. Most have rejected her appeals and supported me. The divorce proceeds. Our house is for sale, and I found a tiny apartment near my office. My lawyer is attempting to include the concealed money in our asset divide after I notified him. I still grab for Miles out of habit some mornings, forgetting what occurred. I'm taking it day by day, but the realization hits me again. Weekend hiking with a group gives me something to look forward to. The support from my coworkers when I require time off for lawyer appointments or mental health days has been surprising. Please check back after the house sells and the divorce is finalized. Until then, I'm reconstructing my life without two individuals I assumed would always be there. Update 2. It's been 3 months since my last update and 6, after discovering the affair. My divorce is almost official, and I'm reconstructing my life. House sold faster than expected. Our local real estate market is booming, and we had many bids within days of listing. An offer above asking price was accepted. Miles claimed he had invested more in the house over the years and tried to get me to take less. My lawyer swiftly disproved that with proof that my contributions were higher after paying for improvements and maintenance. As planned, Miles moved to Seattle. He requested a final meeting before leaving. Against my better judgment, I consented. He visited the practically empty house the day before I left. He broke down in our empty living room surrounded by boxes. He admitted that Grace and he broke up soon after being caught. He said they discovered they had little in common other than treachery, without the pleasure of secrecy. He said he broke up with her before moving to Seattle. Miles' confession that he was visiting a therapist to identify a pattern in his conduct was the most startling. Apparently, he cheated before. He admitted to brief gym relationships with women in our first and third years of marriage. My judgment was further questioned because I never suspected anything. When asked why he was telling me this now, he stated his therapist advocated complete honesty for his recovery. Though his honesty came too late to repair our relationship, I enjoyed knowing the whole truth. Grace has been working to repair her reputation among our friends. She attended church regularly for the first time and posts about development, forgiveness, and second chances on social media. She also wrote me a long, handwritten letter, apologizing for the affair, and subtly blaming me for Miles's emotional neglect that drove him to her. I ripped up the unfinished letter. Grace doesn't realize that Alicia, one of our mutual acquaintances, has been telling me about her behavior. Grace has been dating several men, including a married coworker, according to Alicia. She also complains to everyone that I was dominating and that Miles was stuck in our marriage. While I appreciate Alicia's recording of these chats, I informed her it's unnecessary. Just moving forward. Not gathering evidence for a vendetta. Grace's mother and I met at the grocery store a month ago. Her coldness contrasted with our last meeting. I inquired if everything was good, and she replied Grace informed her I was lying to mutual friends and trying to dismiss her. I politely mentioned that I hadn't spoken to anyone at their company and had avoided addressing Grace. She was skeptical but promised to discuss it with Grace. She later texted me to apologize for her coldness and say she should not have believed Grace without checking with me. Work-wise, I got promoted last month. I won a big client with my presentation the day after uncovering the affair. My employer said that project showed my pressure handling skills. If only he knew. My new flat is modest, yet beautiful. A renovated factory with high ceilings and huge windows is a short walk from a park where I jog every morning. Due of his moderate allergies, Miles always opposed my shelter cat adoption. She's my loyal buddy, greeting me at the door and sleeping with me every night. I've resumed casual dating. My colleague introduced me to her brother, and we've had 3 great but boring dates. I'm not ready for anything serious, but knowing that portion of my life isn't over feels fantastic. The hardest thing is family gatherings. Having raised Miles like a son, my parents were saddened by the divorce. They accepted my decision but were disappointed. Several relatives asked about Miles or commented on how unfortunate it was that such a wonderful couple couldn't work out at my niece's birthday party last weekend. I answered briefly and switched topics whenever feasible. One unexpected highlight has been reconnecting with old pals I lost throughout my marriage. I later discovered Miles gently discouraged friendships, especially with singles or wild people. My weekend trip with 2 college pals I hadn't seen in years was the most fun I've had in years. Within weeks, the divorce should be finalized. Miles has been fairly accommodating, accepting most of my requirements without objection. My lawyer says this is usual when a cheating spouse feels bad, but urges me to be watchful as we complete. For now, I'm living day to day. Some days are better. Now and again, I feel anguish and betrayal, but less often. Looking forward to the day when I can forget them both for 24 hours. Update 3. 6 months have passed since my previous update, and almost a year since my life changed. My last update, is because I'm ready to end this chapter of my life. A divorce was concluded 4 months ago. Miles didn't contest anything, so we split our assets equally, including his concealed money. After getting the final documents, I went to a lovely supper, ordered a costly bottle of wine, and celebrated my new beginning. I was alone and raising a glass to divorce papers, yet it felt right. The waiter probably thought I was insane. Miles stayed in Seattle. We haven't spoken since the divorce, but he periodically emails to check in or share a story. Not responding. His new girlfriend is a Seattle coworker, according to mutual pals. I wish her better luck than myself. Grace's social reputation is irreparably destroyed. Her attempts to portray herself as the victim backfired when she got drunk at a mutual friend's wedding, and admitted to many people that she had chased Miles to prove she could. She loathed me for years, believing I had everything she wanted: a good profession, a steady marriage, and her parents' approval. She took Miles from me to prove she could have them too. The wedding guest Alicia revealed this. Intoxicated Grace approached her, and made a tearful confession that became a weird excuse for her conduct. Alicia promised to email me a phone recording of the conversation. I declined. No need to hear Grace's voice again. Grace quit her job and went several states back home following this happened. She moved back in with her parents, saying she needed a fresh start away from the toxicity in her life. Her mother sent a long email apologizing again for her daughter's behavior, and wishing me happiness despite what occurred. I appreciated the offer but didn't reply. It's my past family. Fortunately, my career is thriving. The client I won in that fateful presentation has referred several significant clients to our firm, and I'm in charge of a new department focused on these high-value connections. The extra responsibilities and a large raise allowed me to buy a little house in a neighborhood I've always enjoyed. Thank goodness my last update's casual dating didn't get serious. This time has been spent on me, revisiting activities I abandoned during my marriage, and strengthening friendships. I've taken cooking classes, joined a reading group, and even tried rock climbing, which terrified me but is now a weekly highlight. My family no longer discusses reconciliation or Miles at gatherings. My mother, who urged me to work things out, is now my biggest supporter. She recently told me she was proud of my handling of everything, and that she wouldn't have had the resolve to leave as firmly. Miles's sister, with whom I'd always been close, surprised me last month. She wanted to come to my city for work and meet for coffee. I agreed, intrigued about her goals. She confessed during our conversation that Miles had been unfaithful in past relationships, something his family recognized but never challenged him about. She said she thought marriage would alter him and regretted for not warning me before our wedding. She added that Miles and his new fiancée were already dealing with tales of his wandering eyes return. This didn't surprise me, but it kind of validated me. The biggest change is how I see relationships and trust. For months after discovering the affair, I wondered how I could have been so blind to what was happening. My unwillingness to acknowledge warning signs was the problem, not my inability to notice them. I felt weird sometimes but ignored my fears to keep calm. I swear I won't ignore those feelings again. I attended a college friend's wedding alone. Several people offered awkward sympathies or promised to help me find someone new after my divorce. I told them I was happier than I had been in years, instead of deflecting or shifting the issue as I would have months earlier. The astonished looks on their faces showed me how much society associates loneliness with sadness. That doesn't mean I'm against another relationship. I'm no longer eager to replace Miles. The worst thing about betrayal is being bitter or skeptical of everyone. Instead, I'm becoming more selective about who I trust, while still being open to true interactions. No magic moment totally erases betrayal, hurt, in my opinion. Some days, a song or place will bring back painful memories, but they are infrequent and brief. The shock and despair have faded into a peaceful acceptance that it was never about me. My erroneous trust in two people's shortcomings and weaknesses. No more updates after this, not because my life won't change, but because Miles and Grace no longer belong in my story. I spent years secretly saving $210,000 to buy a cabin, only for my family to break in, burn it down, and leave me with no choice to file a lawsuit. Reddit, hello. To purchase this cabin, I worked hard and saved for years. I kept it a secret from my family. It turns out that they discovered it nonetheless, and without consulting me, they made the decision to arrive on July 12th with a large group of relatives. Get your popcorn ready for the next catastrophe. There will be a lot of mess. Logan is a 32-year-old man who is unmarried and, presumably, disappointed by the fact that I drive a truck rather than work in an office. My parents provided funding for my older sister, Natalie, to get her MBA. Aria, my younger sister, paid for both her wedding and the down payment on her first house. When I received my CDL, I completed the math once and received a card that stated, "We're proud of you." My parents spent roughly $200,000 between them on bailouts, marriages, automobiles, and schooling. For my 25th birthday, I received a $60 Applebee's gift card. Thus, I made a save. 45% of each paycheck was deposited directly into an account they were unaware existed. I survived on whatever I could microwave in the sleeper and truck stop food. Until the knees blew out, I wore the same 3 pairs of jeans, drove routes that were more lucrative, and that no one else wanted to take. Every extra penny, including tax refunds and Christmas bonuses, went into that account. I was treated like a backup plan by my family for years. The person who would always be available because I had nothing better to do. Assisting them in moving. Free work anytime they were in need. I was never invited to the key events. Only the items that needed a lot of lifting. The cost of Natalie's wedding was $45,000. Complete catering. Location of the destination. Photographer whose hourly rate exceeded my daily earnings. The wedding party did not include me. The day before, I was there to assist with chair setup. It cost an additional $40,000 for Aria's wedding. After that, I assisted with gift moving. They both declined to cover the cost of the petrol. Dad gave Natalie $35,000 as a down payment when she purchased her first home. Christmas was always the worst. When I asked my mother whether she had anything saved for me, she answered, "Well, honey, you're so independent. You don't really need help, do you?" Natalie would receive jewelry and high-end purses. Aria would receive hundreds of dollars in cash and gift cards. I would purchase a sweatshirt from Target, and possibly a gift card for a chain of truck stops. I'll tell you about that cottage now. Last November, I located it in Montana. 20 acres of antique timber frame from 1985, outside Whitefish. The framework was sound, but it needed improvement. There are 3 bedrooms, a stone fireplace, and a backyard brook. The widow, who owned it, was selling because she was unable to keep it up. Her husband, who passed away 2 years ago, had constructed the majority of it by hand. She desired that it be given to a person who would value it. $210,000 is being asked. Add any necessary updates. 1,980 seconds kitchen appliances. A few deck boards were rotten. Plumbing that was functional but required maintenance. The frame, however, was good. Timber beams carved by hand. Foundation made of stone. Roof that only required shingles to be changed. What it might be, I could see. $200,000 in cash was offered. Close in 3 weeks. The widow gave me the impression that I was playing tricks on her. "Cash is no longer used," she remarked. I presented the bank statement to her. She broke down in tears. Claimed that I would have been liked by her spouse. That I made her think of him. Diligent, realistic, and aware of the importance of creating something on your own. She accepted it. I made use of my trucker buddy Chris as my real estate contact. Chris, a former driver in his mid-40s, entered the real estate market after his back failed. He wanted something long-term, and he got the road life. While I was traveling to Portland, he assisted me with the paperwork. From a truck stop in Wyoming, I signed everything on my phone. Sitting in a Pilot parking lot at 2 in the morning, I wired the money from my phone, consuming a burrito in the microwave. In a single transaction, the account fell from $210,000 to $15,000. Closed on December 15th. For my final delivery, I drove directly there, arrived at the cabin in a snowstorm at around midnight. For the first time, I carried a duffel bag and some energy drinks through my own front door. I didn't have any furniture yet, so I slept on the floor in my sleeping bag. There was no one to advise me on what to do with my 20 acres as I woke up to sunlight streaming in through the windows. Told precisely 2 individuals. Chris, as he assisted me in completing the transaction. Additionally, Brian, my trucking company dispatcher, needed to know where to mail my W-2 seconds. Brian was an ex-military man who operated dispatch like a tight ship, and was a straight shooter. They both understood why I didn't say anything. 3 years prior, they had met my family at a BBQ. I saw my mother chat about Natalie's promotion for 20 minutes, without asking me a single question about my life. Fixed the space in between the halls during the course of the following 7 months. I rebuilt the rotten deck boards, fixed the plumbing, installed a new roof, completed the most of the work myself, engaged local contractors for the parts I couldn't handle, paid cash for everything, and remained silent. The idea was to tell them around Christmas, with just the 2 of them, Mom and Dad first, Show them what I created without their assistance. Show that the disappointed son's life was cohesive. On July 12th, that strategy took a wrong turn, so perhaps get a true "we're proud of you." When my mother called, I had been transporting construction equipment outside Bozeman for 3 hours. Her name appeared on the dash as the phone rang. I responded because I assumed someone had passed away. She generally calls in the middle of the week for this reason. "Oh, thank God, Logan. Logan, you're needed now." There was a hint of worry in her voice, which normally indicates that she made a mistake and wanted my help fixing it. "What took place?" "At your cabin, there was a fire. We're all here. And there was a grill mishap that caused the kitchen to sustain smoke damage. A portion of the deck to catch fire. And my brain to shut down. Why in the world are you at my cabin?" "Quiet. Then, honey. Your cottage. When we visited your flat last month to pick up your old furniture, Natalie discovered the address in your letter. Because you wanted it to be a surprise, we thought it was adorable that you purchased a family holiday destination and kept it a secret. You broke into my property while we were planning a large family reunion weekend." "We didn't break in. Dad phoned a locksmith." "Sweetie. We have been partying here since Thursday. Uncle Steve was grilling today when the propane tank exploded, catching the deck. We attempted to extinguish fire, but I hung up. Performed a 65 and an 80 while being pulled over on the shoulder. I nearly clipped a railing because my hands were shaking so much. Gave Brian a call. I need an emergency leave of absence, Brian. A family crisis." "What took place?" "My cottage was set on fire after my family broke in." For 3 seconds, he was silent. "Take as much time as you need. Geez. I'll redirect the traffic. Get a lawyer, Logan." My journey to the cabin took 4 hours. Exceeded all speed limits between Whitefish and Bozeman. My mind kept calculating the potential damage they may have caused during the drive. How much it would cost to fix. How they believed this was appropriate. Kept playing Mom's voice over and over. She said, "Your cabin." In a nonchalant manner. As if she had known all along. As if I wouldn't mind if they broke in. My hands were trembling on the steering wheel. I had to stop twice to collect myself before I made the foolish decision to wrap my pickup around a tree. When I stopped for the second time, I just sat in a parking lot for a rest area and took a deep breath. I looked at pictures I had taken of the cabin when I originally purchased it on my phone. Reminded myself of the situation I was in. Around 7 p.m., they turned onto my property. 7 cars were counted. Uncle Steve's RV. Aunt Sam's van. Natalie's sedan. Arya's SUV. Dad's truck. Mom's SUV. And a car belonging to a relative. From what I could see, 20 persons were unfamiliar to me. Children playing with sparklers, someone's Bluetooth speaker is playing music. The air was heavy with the smell of smoke and charcoal. The deck I had hand repaired was twisted, dark, and partially burnt. The window in the kitchen blew out. Glass all over the place. The exterior wall was covered in smoke streaks. In my front yard, someone had erected tents as if they were going camping. A portable barbecue that wasn't mine was there. There are coolers everywhere. The grass is covered in cans. Overflowing trash bags are stacked by the trees. Between 2 trees, someone had hung a banner. 2024 will be the Havel family reunion. I parked and exited my truck. The entire family turned to stare at me as if I were interrupting their celebration, which I suppose I was. Mom came over first, her eyes flushed. "We're very sorry, Logan, honey. We had planned to surprise you, but after the disaster, we're all really unhappy, and have been cleaning up, but please leave my property." She halted as if I had given her a slap. "What? Now go off my property, everyone." Dad approached me with a drink in hand, attempting to seem like the sensible parent he always was when he was going to deceive me. "Let's discuss this, son. An accident occurred. We'll contribute to the cost of the repairs. Alex, you broke into my fucking house while we were merely attempting to do something pleasant." His face flushed. "We didn't break in. A locksmith opened it for us. You need to have informed us that you purchased this property. We believed you wanted us all to enjoy it together, because it's the ideal family destination." I continued, glancing at everyone. "And he paid a locksmith to drill my lock like it was his place. No one requested permission. You simply concluded that you were entitled." I moved past him, and in the direction of the cottage. Its front door was ajar. Through my windows, I can hear conversations and music coming from inside. Natalie arrived at my house with a drink, and ice clinking in the glass. She was always helpful to me. I was married to a man who worked in finance and thought I was beneath him. "Calm down, Logan. We are related. What's so important? There is only minor smoke damage. It will be covered by insurance. By breaking in, we were really doing you a favor, and you ruined my belongings. Oh, please. It hasn't been destroyed. Quit being so theatrical. We genuinely thought you would be pleased that we were all enjoying the cabin you purchased, and we have been having a fantastic weekend. Rather, you're destroying what little time we have left as a family and acting selfishly. I strolled into my cabin, past her. The kitchen was a complete mess. Smoke damage left black stripes on the ceiling and walls. I had painted the cabinets myself. Devoted 3 weekends to perfecting the hue. Were scorched. Doors that hang crookedly. A few of them burned through. Above the sink, the window was blasted out. Glass all over the place. There is an empty fire extinguisher on the counter. Everything is covered in foam. Would require a full replacement. There were burn marks on the stove. Everything inside the refrigerator was rotten. The door was ajar, and the refrigerator was unplugged. The cooler was still full of their drinks when they discovered it on the deck after unplugging it to plug it in. There were cans and bottles all throughout the living room. There were muddy footprints on the $300 rug I had purchased 2 months prior, wet towels on my recliner, and someone had rearranged my furnishings. It was worse in the bedrooms. My bed linens had juice stains, toys were all over the place, and someone's children had been in my room. Wet towels were stacked on the floor, and toiletries were scattered throughout my bathroom. Trying not to have a heart attack, I watched the entire thing. The whole family was standing in a defensive cluster, eyeing me as if I were the issue, as I went back outside. Aria had her phone out. Uncle Steve was attempting to project authority. Aunt Sam was in tears. The children continued to rush around. I'm going to call the police if everyone doesn't leave immediately. Aria chuckled. That phony chuckle. Logan. You're not phoning the police on your own family. Simply unwind. Tomorrow, we'll tidy things up and contribute to the repairs. So everything will be alright. As usual, you're overreacting. My house was broken into by you. My property was ruined by you. You still had the courage to say something. Now get out of here. Please. Uncle Steve moved to the front. The big guy used to be the head of the household. Logan, your mom told us that you purchased a cabin, and we thought it would be great to come together and enjoy it. We had no idea you would be so possessive of it. Have I been asked? Quiet. Have any of you called me to inquire about coming here? More quiet. My mother began to cry more intensely. After rolling her eyes, Aria returned to her phone. Natalie put her drink down. Please accept our apologies for the fire. But right now, you're being rather impolitely. You're treating us like criminals. Even though our family traveled this far to rejoice. That's precisely why no one asks you to events. You are crooks, which is why you are constantly so pessimistic. You broke into my property without permission, and damaged it to the tune of thousands of dollars. I took out my phone and began snapping photos of the charred deck, the blown-out window, the smoke damage, every bottle, can, bit of garbage, and shattered object. As they stood there observing, they recorded everything. I have footage of the toys in my bedroom, the clogged toilet, the foam residue, and the inside damage. What are you doing, Logan? Mom's voice trembled as she asked. You'll see. I then dialed 911. Deputy Harris was the sheriff's deputy who arrived, mid-40 seconds, appeared worn out. Before he was overrun, I met him at the edge of the land. Logan Havel, are you? Yes, this property is mine. They caused fire damage, hired a locksmith to break my locks, and entered without my consent. He glanced over my shoulder to my family, huddled close to the charred deck. Is that your family? Regretfully? He nearly grinned. Let's begin with the fundamentals. After that, he questioned me. Is the property mine? Are they authorized to be there? I didn't tell them that I purchased it. They were never invited. They decided to arrange a party for themselves after discovering the address while looking through my mail. Deputy Harris took out his notes, and nodded. All right. Give me the statements. First he spoke to my parents, then my sisters, and finally Uncle Steve. While I stood by my truck, recording additional damage on my phone, he spent about 40 minutes interviewing each person. Their portable grill, which ignited the fire, was also recorded. A damaged valve, on a propane tank. Deputy Harris returned. According to your family, they believed you wanted them here, and took your sister's discovery of the address as an invitation. It is not an invitation to break into someone's home. I concur. The situation is as follows. Some of this is civil property damage, but if you want to pursue it, you may be charged with trespassing and breaking and entering. You make the decision. Yes, I do. He gave me a long look. Are you certain? Your family is this. Without my consent, they demolished my property. Yes, without a doubt. Okay. I couldn't hear what he was saying as he walked back to my family. My mom began to cry more intensely. My sisters appeared to be plotting my murder. Dad had a purple face. Deputy Harris returned. I've told them that you'll be submitting a formal report and that they must depart right away. I've taken pictures of the scene. To make an official statement, you will have to visit the station tomorrow. In order to record the fire damage for the report, I'm also phoning the fire marshal. How about the harm? That's polite. If you intend to file a lawsuit for damages, you should probably consult a lawyer, obtain repair quotes, and document everything. Yes, I am. He gave his card to me. Visit us tomorrow morning. Over the course of the following hour, my family filled their cars. Every time Mom tried to get close to me, I walked away. Dad appeared to want to punch someone, but with a police officer around, he decided against it. Natalie ensured that I heard her inform Aria that I had passed away. They had to go, which is why the children were crying. Uncle Steve was murmuring about treachery in the family. Aunt Sam gave me the expression of someone who had kicked a puppy. They left at 10 o'clock at night. The fire marshal, who recorded the damage to the kitchen and terrace, and Deputy Harris exited last. When everyone had gone, I silently strolled through my cabin. My family believed they had a right to everything I owned, so they demolished the house I had saved for 11 years and the property I had manually repaired. About midnight, I gave Chris a call. A lawyer is what I need. Well done. What took place? Described everything in detail. Then he was silent for a minute. I know a dude, man. Expert in property litigation. He's a shark, but he's not cheap. Do you want his phone number sent to you? Yes, Logan, I must ask. Do you truly wish to file a lawsuit against your own family? Chris. They set fire to my house after breaking in. How would you respond? I would take them to court till next year. I'll SMS you the attorney's details. I slept in my truck. I was unable to sleep in the cabin because of the overwhelming stench of smoke and the devastation my family had caused. I sat in the sleeper cab and peered out the windshield at my land. I made a note on my phone of everything they had broken and everything that needed to be fixed. Before I quit writing, the list had reached 2 complete pages. Only got around 2 hours of sleep. Continued to use my belongings as though they were theirs. Laugh, drink, and think about them. The morning arrived dark and chilly. I used my portable burner to make instant coffee. As the sun rose over my ruined land, I sat on the tailgate. Chris gave a call at 7 in the morning. On Monday morning, we met with the attorney. Frank was his name, and he was 60 years old. Guy seems to have spent 40 years ruining people in court. Everything was laid out, including the police report, the fire marshal's report, the photos, the videos, the repair estimates I had received over the weekend, the kitchen repair, the deck rebuild, the smoke remediation and repainting, the broken windows, the damaged furniture and belongings, the stolen food and supplies, the new locks and security system, and the lost wages from missing work. $50,000 in total. Frank went over everything, taking notes, and occasionally glancing up at me through his reading glasses. Put the papers down at last. This is quite simple. Property damage, trespassing, and breaking and entering with a locksmith. The propane tank leak is confirmed by the fire marshal's report. You have records, a police report, and evidence of your ownership. They've got no defense. How much time will it take? 6 months to a year if they resist. Maybe 3 months if they settle. However, I must ask. Are you prepared for this? They will attempt to ruin your life. This is not new to me. Yes, I'm prepared. He grinned. Okay, let's destroy their entire universe. They were smacked by the lawsuit on Wednesday. All 3 defendants, Alex, Linda, and Natalie, received certified letters from Frank. Since Aria didn't actually organize it, she wasn't given a name. She had just arrived, but she would soon learn the truth. On Thursday morning, my phone began to ring. Disregarded the initial 10 calls. Send them all to voicemail. Later that evening, while sitting in my truck at a rest area in Idaho, I listened to them. Logan, please don't sue us, Mom. Your parents are us. We were wrong. We believed you would be content. Let's resolve this as a family, so please give us a call back. This is absurd. Dad. You're going to ruin this family because of some smoke damage or an accident. Instead of rushing to attorneys, give me a call back, and let's resolve this like adults. Logan, Natalie, you're a piece of work. Choose a cottage over your own family. You've always been self-centered, but this is a new low. Never again expect to be invited to any family gatherings. Mom and Dad are inconsolable. Disregarded them all. That afternoon, Brian gave a call. How are things going, dude? Filed the lawsuit. They're going crazy. Excellent. They merited it. Listen, if you need work, I have several runs coming up. Good pay, long hauls. Staying active could be beneficial. Don't think about this disaster. Send me the routes, please. We'll manage. Logan. You made the correct decision. Return to driving the following week. I was given premium routes by Brian, which paid more than my typical hauls. Allowed me some time to reflect, without having to witness the cabin's devastation. It was beneficial, no family drama, just myself, the truck, and the highway. Every few days, Frank sent me updates via SMS regarding the legal matters. A lawyer had been retained by the defendants. It was a misunderstanding, they were saying. Said they had attempted to get in touch with me, but were unable. Because they believed the family get-together would make me happy. Total fabrications. According to Frank's phone records, they didn't call me until after the fire. Early in August, the repairs began. I couldn't do it myself while working, so I had to hire contractors. I took out a $30,000 loan to pay for the immediate expenses because the original purchase and renovations depleted my resources. Since I had just purchased the property and had not yet obtained complete coverage, insurance was challenging. Only basic responsibility. I would correct my error once this was ended. Every dollar spent on repairs seemed like an excuse to intensify the lawsuit. Almost immediately, my relatives launched their smear campaign. Chris informed me that Natalie was telling everyone that I had invited them in secret, changed my mind, and filed a lawsuit to collect money. Total fabrications, but since it suited their narrative better than the truth, many accepted them. Aria was continually sharing tearful selfies with captions about toxic family members who prioritize money over relationships on social media. Lengthy posts about how I was ruining the family because of an accident, and how I refused to even try to resolve it with them. At church, Mom was acting like the victim. When Chris's wife went there, she heard everything. Mom sobs about raising a child that was unappreciative, and more concerned with possessions than with family. The women of the church were appalled. Began a circle of prayer for her. At his Veterans Hall, Dad was sharing his story. Before someone questioned why they hadn't simply sought for permission beforehand, they received a lot of support there. The response to that question was not favorable. He departed early. Natalie launched an internet crowdsourcing initiative. Assist a family in overcoming a fraudulent lawsuit. Andmans raised roughly $800 before it was removed for being deceptive when someone complained. She also held me accountable for that. Didn't reply to any of it. Frank suggested that they speak. Every statement they make in public could be interpreted as harassment. Don't participate, but record everything. Makes them appear worse in court. Depositions were held in September. I had to sit in Frank's office while I was questioned on tape by the defense attorney, Miles, who appeared to be a recent law school graduate. Did I get along well with my parents? Had there been disagreements before? Why had I kept the cottage a secret from them? Was I not being spiteful? Answered all of the questions. No, my relationship with them was not good. Since the cabin belonged to me and they had no claim to it, I kept it a secret from them. They broke my locks with the help of a locksmith, entered without authorization, and caused $50,000 in damage. In addition to full recompense, I demanded legal fees. The defense attorney attempted to portray me as vengeful and greedy, asked if I harbored resentment toward my sisters for receiving financial assistance. Asked whether underlying family problems or the cabin were the true cause of this. Half of it was objected to by Frank. The implication was obvious, but the judge upheld the majority of the objections. They intended to paint me as the villain who ruined the family because of the property damage. My parents were also required to provide depositions. Frank later told me that things didn't work out for them. Alex acknowledged that they never sought my consent. Linda acknowledged that they looked through my mail without asking to find the address. Natalie acknowledged that she hired the locksmith to open my cabin, and planned the entire event. In October, Frank gave me a call. They're looking to settle. For what amount? Total damages, plus the cost of your legal representation. $55,000 in total. Accept it. Are you certain? If we go to trial, we might receive more. Suffering on an emotional level. Punitive damages. I want it finished. Accept the settlement. Astute. I'll write the terms. Additionally, I advise you to request a restraining order against each of the 3 defendants. Take action. In November, the settlement was finalized. On a Wednesday morning, as I was transporting a shipment across Nebraska, a wire transfer was made directly to my account, repaid the repair debt right away. Paid for Frank's services. Had an extra $18,000. Contribute half to the planned security system update. Save the remainder. My phone and the sheriff's office are immediately connected to cameras, motion sensors, and an alarm system. I applied for a protection order against all 3 defendants with Frank's assistance. The judge signed it a week later. Alex, Linda, and Natalie are subject to a 3-year order. They were unable to reach me, couldn't approach me or my property within 500 feet. Arrest was the consequence of a violation, not merely a fine. I never heard directly from them again. That was ensured by the restraining order. Chris, on the other hand, told me that they were having difficulties through connections they had in common. Their savings had been depleted by the settlement. To pay for it, Alex and Linda had to refinance their home. Money was the continual source of contention between Natalie and her husband. Aria was upset that her parents were no longer able to assist with childcare costs. Excellent. Early December saw the completion of the cabin repairs, right before the first snowfall, although it took a total of 4 months. The final product looked superior. A new deck with composite boards that wouldn't burn and the right railings. Commercial-grade appliances make the kitchen better. Everywhere is stainless steel. A functional hood, and an appropriate ventilation system. The exact colors I had originally selected were used to refinish the walls. The repair debt was paid off in full by the settlement. Gave me space to breathe that I hadn't had in months. I updated to granite countertops in the new kitchen. First time installing a dishwasher. I thought I deserved that. I possessed a gas range. Cole knew a local craftsman who made the cabinets to order, superior to my own work in terms of quality. However, they were still painted the same hue. I resumed spending my days off there. Brought furniture from my flat. Replaced anything they had damaged. Cole helped me set up the security system. I had met Cole, a local contractor, while doing the repairs. We became buddies when he assisted with the deck's reconstruction. Every angle of the property is captured by 8 cameras. Motion-activated lights were even placed around the perimeter. Between the equipment and the expert installation, the entire setup had cost roughly $10,000. But I was able to do it correctly thanks to the settlement money. Again, no one was entering without my knowledge. Just before Christmas, Brian arrived and assisted me in moving the final large items. New refrigerator, bed frame, and couch. We grabbed some drinks while standing on the chilly deck and admiring the freshly snow-covered land. He said, "It's unbelievable that they attempted to take this away from you. Tried and didn't succeed. Listen to the rumors. In order to pay the compensation, your old guy had to take up side jobs. Excellent. For once, let him do anything other than write checks to my sisters." Chris arrived for the New Year's. In the outdoor fire pit I had constructed away from the cabin, we started a fire and had a few drinks. Owning your own peace is what he raised his can to. That's what I'll drink to. Through contacts, I learned that the repercussions from my family was still continuing strong and increasing worse. The settlement wiped out Alex and Linda's savings, forcing them to refinance their home at a horrendous rate, destroyed the retirement fund they had been saving for 20 years. The cruise they had scheduled for their 35th anniversary had to be canceled. Couldn't afford their usual way of living. They had to cancel their membership in the country club. In January, Natalie and her spouse formally parted ways. In addition to the financial strain, he had been incensed that she had planned the entire cabin invasion. It seemed as though she had pulled him into her turmoil. I'm sure everything was going well for everyone when she returned to live with my parents. I heard that at 34, she was posting passive-aggressive quotes on social media while sleeping in her childhood bedroom. Passive-aggressive posts about family betrayal and financial difficulties replaced Aria's flawless lifestyle content on Instagram. The fact that her parents were unable to assist with their second child as promised infuriated her husband. They had planned their budget with the free childcare in mind. They were now rushing to find childcare that they couldn't afford. Their idyllic marriage was beginning to show signs of weakness. Her posts became increasingly somber and desperate, and fewer followers responded. Uncle Steve attributed the entire situation to my parents. Said that by inviting him to Logan's cabin without first making sure I was aware of it, they forced him into it. Give up conversing with them. Aunt Sam continued to weep over having to cover her portion of the legal bills. For amusement, a cousin spread the myth that I was genuinely wealthy, and only intended to bankrupt the family. I overheard Natalie telling people that I had destroyed the family, that I was vicious and vindictive, and that money was more important to me than relationships. Let her speak. I had already restored my savings and my cabin. At the age of 34, she was forced to live with our parents due to debt and a broken marriage. Shifted my priorities, and began creating the life I had truly desired. Cole introduced me to additional locals. Ordinary guys who didn't demand favors, or give a damn about family problems. I was introduced to Cole's crew. Guys who spent their weekends hanging out and working in construction understood it. Sometimes all you need is your own space. When I wasn't traveling, we would collaborate on projects and take care of whatever needed to be done. To house tools and equipment, a suitable shed was constructed on the land. We completed everything correctly, although it took 3 weekends. Everything, including a suitable foundation. The deck was extended to partially encircle the cabin, expanded my area, so I could sit outside, and take in the sunsets. Installed a generator backup system that, in the event of a power outage, could power the entire chalet for a week. Cole recommended an electrician who completed the work neatly, to code, and at a reasonable cost. When I was nearby, he would come up. Whatever project came up next, we would work on it. He showed me how to install proper mitered corners, crown molding, and improved my carpentry skills. In exchange, I would assist him with side gigs when I had free time, earning extra money that I immediately used to upgrade the cabin. The appeal went to Cole. Sometimes all you need is a home of your own. No obligations, no justifications. That's right. The first indications of spring appeared in March. Everything is awakening as the snow melts and the brook rushes loudly. Took a week off from work and did nothing useful while at the cabin. Read the books I've had on my to-do list for years. Prepared real food, not just trash from the truck stop. On the new terrace, grilled steaks. Every morning, I made fresh coffee. As the sun rose over the mountains, I sat outside in the chill, went to the creek to fish. Landed a few trout. Big enough to eat, but not enormous. They were pan-fried with garlic and butter. Ate them while the sun was setting. It was earned. Now everything felt earned up here. I considered where I was a year ago. I was reflected about all that had transpired. The lawsuit, the fire, the invasion, all of it. I was pleased with every choice I had made. No duties, no family drama, just me and the life I had created and protected. I was staining the new deck on a Tuesday afternoon in late April, 5 months after the settlement, when a car came into my driveway. I had the gate open since I was anticipating a delivery of lumber. Instantly recognized the vehicle. The white SUV of Aria. I was warned by the security system before she reached halfway up the drive. I looked at my phone's camera stream. She looked grungy, had no children, and was by herself. I put down my brush and went to the top of the driveway to greet her. She gently exited. "Can we have a conversation, Logan? You must go now. Just 5 minutes, please." To get here, I drove for 3 hours. I need assistance. Mom, Dad, and Natalie are subject to a restraining order, Aria. You are still trespassing on my property even though you are not protected by it. I'm requesting that you leave once. She broke down in tears. Real tears that appeared to have been accumulating for several months. I'm desperate, Logan. Dad and Mom are no longer willing to assist. They are unable to pay for it. Natalie blames me for not preventing you from suing, so she hardly speaks to me. My spouse and I are in danger of drowning. I need money alone since the second child's medical fees are ruining us, and the house payment is 3 months overdue. $20,000. I'll reimburse you, I promise. My husband is discussing divorce. We are on the verge of losing the house, and I am at a loss on what to do. You ought to have considered it before you broke into my property. I didn't cause that. I recently arrived. It wasn't organized by me. The locksmith was not hired by me. I had no idea. You were aware. Everyone was aware. And none of you requested authorization. You simply thought that since it has always been that way, you could take anything you wanted from me. She left a damp streak on her face after wiping it with her sleeve. I understand. All right. We made a mistake. We ought to have asked before coming here. However, this is not the same. I am your sister. I beseech you. Parents that take responsibility rather than constantly seeking freebies are what your kids need. At your age. Do you know what I was doing? Saving every penny while living in a truck. Routes that no one else wants to take. Consuming trash food in order to construct something. And you? You have a wedding, a down payment for a home, and your parents' free childcare, and you still can't make it work? The mask came off as her expression changed from one of desperation to one of anger. Are you truly going to let your niece and nephew to suffer because you harbor resentment? Just like I had to solve my own difficulties, I'll let you solve yours. You were given everything while being treated like the family's disappointment for 11 years. And you believed you could simply take it when I eventually made something for myself. It was an error. It was a matter of entitlement. I will now ask you once more to vacate my land. Then I'm going to contact Deputy Harris and have you taken out for trespassing." She was breathing heavily as she stood there trembling. "The brother I knew is not you. I was unknown to you. You simply knew which version worked best. You have 30 seconds to get into your vehicle." Began to count aloud. At 15, she received the message. She practically sprinted to her SUV, started the engine with trembling hands, and sat there for a while as if she may say anything more. I took out my phone and displayed Deputy Harris's number for her to see. With her tires spinning and debris flying, she sped out. Behind her, the gate immediately closed. I returned to staining the deck after watching the dust settle on my driveway. 3 coatings were required for the wood. It had to be done correctly. An hour later, Cole arrived with the materials needed to expand the shed. I saw the new tire marks. Someone just walked out quickly. My sister arrived pleading for cash. "What were you saying?" Before I phoned the sheriff, I gave her 30 seconds to go. He picked up his tools and nodded. "Excellent. Some folks need to understand that there are repercussions. We built something that would last until the sun set." After we were done, we sat on the new deck and watched the light fade over the mountains while he opened 2 sodas from his cooler. Cole remarked, "This is a good place. Deserving of protection." Indeed, it is. That night, the cottage was silent. Simply the sound of the brook rushing with melted snow. The wind blowing among the pines. "The new deckboards are starting to settle." It buzzed on my phone. Brian texted. "If you would like, I have a premium route for you next week, Boston to Portland. Outstanding compensation." Answered. "I'm in. Forward the information." I slept better that night than I had in a long time. It was a good life. I was at peace. I owned my property. And I felt good about myself because I knew I had won. That was sufficient. My sister screamed I was ruining her wedding after I defended her best friend. 3 weeks later, her husband told me the chilling truth. "I'm Rachel, 27 female, and I need to know if I was wrong for what I said to my sister Lauren, 31 female at her wedding. This whole situation has torn our family apart, and I'm not sure if I made things worse. Lauren and her best friend Sophie, 32 female, have been inseparable since they were 7 years old. They met in 2nd grade when Chloe moved to our neighborhood, and Lauren was the first kid to talk to her. From that day forward, they were attached at the hip. They had sleepovers every weekend, shared clothes, went to the same college, and even got their first jobs at the same restaurant chain. Everyone in our family considered Chloe like a third daughter. She came to every family vacation, every birthday party, and every holiday gathering. Growing up, Lauren and Chloe made this pact that they would be each other's maid of honor when they got married. They talked about it constantly throughout high school and college. They even picked out each other's bridesmaid dresses when they were teenagers, saving magazine clippings in a scrapbook they called their wedding Bible. Our mom used to joke that she was planning 2 weddings because Chloe was over so much, helping Lauren dream about her future ceremony. Chloe has always been the more outgoing one. She's a fashion blogger with about 50,000 followers on Instagram, and has this really bold style. She wears vintage designer pieces, bright colors, and always looks like she stepped out of a magazine. Lauren, on the other hand, is more conservative with her clothing choices. She works as an accountant, and usually wears business casual outfits. Despite their different styles, they never had any conflicts about it. Lauren always said she loved how confident Sophie was, and how she could pull off anything. 3 years ago, Lauren started dating Adam, 33 male. He's a high school teacher and coach, who she met through a mutual friend. He seemed nice enough, though he was pretty quiet around our family. Lauren was head over heels for him from the beginning. They moved in together after 8 months of dating, and Lauren started talking about marriage almost immediately. Adam proposed 2 years into their relationship, right before the pandemic hit. That's when everything changed. The moment Lauren got engaged, her attitude towards Sophie shifted completely. She stopped inviting Chloe to family events. She would make excuses when Sophie suggested hanging out. She started declining invitations to parties where Sophie would be present. At first, our mom and I thought maybe Lauren was just stressed about wedding planning and needed some space. But weeks turned into months, and Lauren continued to distance herself from her best friend. The breaking point came when Lauren announced her wedding party. She asked me to be her maid of honor instead of Chloe. I was surprised, but tried to be supportive. I figured maybe she wanted to honor our sisterly bond. But then I found out through a group text that Chloe wasn't even invited to be a bridesmaid. Lauren had chosen 4 other girls, including 2 cousins she barely spoke to, and a co-worker she had known for less than a year. I confronted Lauren about this decision. She brushed me off and said that Sophie was too busy with her blog anyway, and probably wouldn't have time for bridesmaid duties. This excuse made no sense because Sophie had been asking about wedding plans for months, and offering to help with everything from dress shopping to venue hunting. When I pushed further, Lauren got defensive and said she could choose whoever she wanted in her wedding party. Our mom tried to talk to Lauren about the situation too. She pointed out that Chloe had been like family for 24 years, and that excluding her was cruel. Lauren's response was that people change and grow apart, and that she was focusing on her new life with Adam. She said Sophie would understand because she wasn't the type to cause drama. I decided to reach out to Sophie myself to see how she was handling everything. When I called her, she was clearly upset, but trying to put on a brave face. She said Lauren had been acting strange for months, and that she didn't understand what she had done wrong. She mentioned that Lauren had stopped responding to her texts, and had canceled their monthly dinner plans multiple times without rescheduling. Chloe said she was heartbroken, but didn't want to cause problems by confronting Lauren directly. The wedding was planned for last October. Lauren chose a beautiful outdoor venue with a rustic theme. She went dress shopping with just me and our mom, even though she had always said she wanted Sophie there for that moment. Lauren picked a simple, elegant dress with lace sleeves and a flowing skirt. It was beautiful, but very traditional and conservative, which suited her personality. As the wedding day approached, the tension in our family was obvious. Our dad kept asking why Sophie wasn't in the wedding party, and Lauren would change the subject. Our mom was clearly upset, but trying to keep the peace. I was caught in the middle, trying to be supportive of Lauren while also maintaining my friendship with Chloe. The week before the wedding, Lauren seemed increasingly anxious. She snapped at me during the rehearsal dinner preparations, and seemed on edge during the ceremony walkthrough. I assumed it was normal pre-wedding nerves, but looking back, there was something more intense about her behavior. On the wedding day, everything seemed to go smoothly at first. The venue looked beautiful, the weather was perfect, and Lauren looked stunning in her dress. The ceremony was lovely, and Adam seemed genuinely happy. But I noticed that Lauren kept scanning the crowd during the reception, and she had this tense expression that didn't match the joyful occasion. Chloe arrived at the reception wearing a navy blue wrap dress that hit just below her knees. It was form-fitting, but completely appropriate for a wedding. She had paired it with nude heels and simple jewelry. Honestly, compared to some of her usual outfits, this was quite conservative. Several other guests were wearing similar styles, and the bridesmaids were in tight-fitting dresses as well. But the moment Lauren saw Sophie, her entire demeanor changed. She went rigid and started whispering angrily to Adam. Throughout the entire reception, Lauren kept glaring at Sophie from across the room. She was clearly seething, and it was making everyone uncomfortable. Our mom kept trying to distract Lauren and get her to focus on her guests, but Lauren was fixated on Sophie. During the dinner portion of the reception, Lauren made several passive-aggressive comments about inappropriate wedding attire, within earshot of Chloe. She mentioned how some people don't know how to dress respectfully for sacred occasions. It was mortifying to watch, especially since Sophie's outfit was perfectly fine. After the cake cutting, Lauren finally exploded. She marched over to Chloe and started yelling about how she had no respect for the sanctity of marriage, and how she was trying to steal attention from the bride. She accused Chloe of being selfish and attention-seeking. Chloe was completely shocked, and tried to apologize even though she had done nothing wrong. That's when I stepped in. I told Lauren that she was being ridiculous, and that Sophie's dress was perfectly appropriate. I pointed out that Lauren had known Chloe for 24 years, and knew exactly how she dressed. If Lauren had such strong opinions about her outfit, she should have included her in the wedding party so she could choose her dress, or at least communicated her concerns beforehand. I said that Lauren was looking for an excuse to be angry, and that her behavior was embarrassing. Lauren completely lost it. She started screaming at me in front of all the wedding guests, calling me a terrible sister, and accusing me of ruining her wedding day. She said I was supposed to support her no matter what, and that I had chosen Chloe over my own family. The argument got so heated that Adam had to physically step between us. After the confrontation, Lauren stormed off to the bridal suite. Several guests started leaving early because the atmosphere had become so uncomfortable. Our dad was furious with me for causing a scene, saying that I should have kept my mouth shut and supported Lauren no matter what. Our mom was upset with everyone, and just wanted the day to end. Adam came to find me about an hour later. He looked exhausted and said that Lauren was having a complete meltdown and refusing to come back to the reception. He asked if I could try to talk to her, but I refused. I told him that Lauren owed Sophie an apology, and that I wasn't going to enable her behavior anymore. The reception ended awkwardly, with the bride nowhere to be found. Most of the guests left without saying goodbye to Lauren. Chloe left immediately after our argument, and I haven't spoken to her since that night. Our family rode home in complete silence. Since the wedding, Lauren has been giving me the silent treatment. She's been telling everyone that I ruined her special day, and that I'm a horrible sister. Our dad has been taking her side, saying that I should have kept my opinions to myself and supported Lauren no matter what. Our mom is caught in the middle, but has hinted that she thinks Lauren was wrong to treat Chloe so poorly. I keep replaying that night in my head. Maybe I should have stayed out of it and let Lauren and Sophie work it out themselves, but watching Lauren humiliate her best friend of 24 years over a completely appropriate dress felt wrong. I couldn't stand by and watch it happen. The thing that bothers me most is that Lauren's anger seems so disproportionate to the situation. Chloe wasn't trying to upstage anyone or cause drama. She was just existing in a dress that Lauren decided to have a problem with. The whole thing felt like Lauren was looking for an excuse to push Sophie away, and the dress was just the final straw. So, I need to know, was I wrong for calling out my sister at her wedding? Should I have kept my mouth shut and let her treat Sophie however she wanted? I'm starting to question whether I made the right choice, especially since it's caused such a rift in our family. Update 1. It's been 3 weeks since Lauren's wedding, and I thought I should update everyone on what's been happening. The situation has gotten much more complicated than I initially thought. The day after the wedding, I received several text messages from Lauren, calling me selfish and saying that I had destroyed the most important day of her life. She said she never wanted to speak to me again, and that I was dead to her. Our dad sent me a long message about how disappointed he was in my behavior, and how I needed to apologize immediately. Our mom texted me separately, saying that while she didn't agree with how I handled things, she understood why I was upset. I decided to give everyone some space to cool down. I figured Lauren would eventually realize that her reaction was over the top, and we could work things out. I was wrong. Instead of reaching out to me, Lauren doubled down on her anger. She started posting passive-aggressive messages on social media about fake family members and people who pretend to care about you. She unfriended me on Facebook and blocked me on Instagram. When I tried to call her, she had blocked my number. Our dad kept pressuring me to be the bigger person and apologize. He said that Lauren was still processing the stress of the wedding, and that I should understand she was emotional. He insisted that as the older sister, I should have been more mature and supportive. I refused to apologize because I genuinely believed I had done the right thing. Our mom was trying to stay neutral, but was clearly frustrated with both of us. She kept saying that this whole situation was ridiculous, and that we needed to find a way to move past it. She had been trying to get Lauren to talk to her about what really happened with Chloe, but Lauren kept shutting down the conversation. About a week after the wedding, I ran into Chloe at the grocery store. She looked terrible, like she hadn't been sleeping well. She thanked me for standing up for her, but said she wished the whole thing had never happened. She told me that she had been trying to figure out what she did wrong to make Lauren hate her so much. She said she had been going through their old text messages and social media posts, trying to pinpoint when things changed between them. Chloe mentioned that Lauren had been acting strange since she got engaged, but she couldn't understand why. She said she had been nothing but supportive of Lauren's relationship with Adam, and had even helped her plan some of the engagement party details. She was completely baffled by Lauren's behavior, and kept asking if I knew what was really going on. I didn't have any answers for her. The whole situation was as confusing to me as it was to everyone else. Then, last Tuesday, I got a phone call that changed everything. It was Adam, and he sounded upset. He said he needed to talk to me about something important, and asked if we could meet for coffee. I was hesitant because I wasn't sure if Lauren would be okay with him talking to me, but he insisted it was important. We met at a cafe near my apartment, and Adam looked exhausted. He said that he and Lauren had been fighting constantly since the wedding, and that he was starting to question everything about their relationship. He told me that Lauren had been acting paranoid and defensive, and that she had been making accusations that didn't make sense. Then he said something that completely shocked me. He told me that Lauren had been lying to him about Chloe for months. According to Adam, Lauren had told him that Chloe had been inappropriate with him at their engagement party, and had been trying to seduce him ever since. She claimed that Chloe had been sending him flirty messages, and showing up at places where she knew he would be. Adam said he was confused because none of this had actually happened. He barely knew Chloe, and had only met her a handful of times. He had never received any inappropriate messages from her, and she had never acted flirty or inappropriate around him. He said he had tried to tell Lauren that her accusations were false, but she insisted that he was being naive, and that Chloe was manipulating him. This explains so much about Lauren's behavior. She had been systematically pushing Chloe away because she believed her best friend was trying to steal her fiancé. But the problem was that these incidents had never actually happened. Lauren had either misinterpreted innocent interactions or had completely fabricated them in her mind. Adam said that the dress incident at the wedding was just the final excuse Lauren needed to cut Chloe out of her life permanently. She had been building up to this confrontation for months, and she saw Sophie's outfit as proof that she was trying to get attention from men, specifically Adam. But there was more. Adam told me that he had been doing some investigating on his own after the wedding. He had gone through his phone records and social media accounts to see if there was any evidence of inappropriate contact from Chloe. He found nothing. He had also asked his friends who were at the engagement party if they had noticed anything inappropriate between him and Chloe. They all said no. Adam said that when he presented this evidence to Lauren, she had a complete meltdown. She accused him of taking Sophie's side, and said that everyone was against her. She claimed that Chloe had somehow deleted the evidence of her inappropriate behavior and had convinced everyone to lie for her. The final straw for Adam came when Lauren demanded that he cut contact with several of his friends who had defended Chloe. She said that anyone who didn't believe her version of events was obviously under Sophie's spell and couldn't be trusted. Adam realized that Lauren was asking him to isolate himself from his support system based on accusations that had no basis in reality. Adam said he had been trying to get Lauren to see reason, but she was completely convinced that Sophie was out to destroy their marriage. She had started monitoring his phone and social media accounts, looking for evidence of contact with Chloe. She had also been interrogating him about his whereabouts and demanding to know who he had been talking to. The situation had gotten so bad that Adam said he was considering marriage counseling, but Lauren refused to go. She said that the problem wasn't with their marriage, but with everyone else who was trying to sabotage them. She believed that I had been recruited by Sophie to help break up her marriage, which was why I had defended her at the wedding. Adam apologized for not speaking up sooner. He said he had been trying to be supportive of Lauren and had hoped that she would eventually realize her mistakes. But after 3 weeks of constant fighting and paranoid accusations, he was starting to wonder if he had married someone he didn't really know. He asked me what I thought he should do. I told him that I couldn't give him marriage advice, but that I was concerned about Lauren's mental state. The person he was describing didn't sound like the sister I had grown up with. The Lauren I knew was sometimes stubborn and jealous, but she wasn't paranoid or delusional. Adam said he was going to try one more time to get Lauren to see reason. He was planning to sit down with her and go through all of her accusations point by point, showing her the evidence that contradicted her claims. If she still refused to acknowledge reality, he said he would have to consider whether their marriage could survive this level of distrust and delusion. I asked Adam if he wanted me to talk to Lauren, but he said it would probably make things worse. Lauren was convinced that I was part of some conspiracy against her, and my involvement would only reinforce her paranoid beliefs. After Adam left, I sat in my car for a long time, trying to process everything he had told me. I realized that I had been completely wrong about the situation. I had thought Lauren was being petty and jealous, but the reality was much more serious. She had been living in a fantasy world where her best friend was trying to destroy her life, and she had been making decisions based on events that had never actually happened. I called our mom and told her about my conversation with Adam. She was shocked, but said it explained a lot about Lauren's behavior over the past few months. She said she had noticed that Lauren had been making strange comments about Sophie, and had seemed increasingly paranoid about her relationship with Adam. Our mom said she was going to try to talk to Lauren about getting professional help, but she wasn't optimistic. Lauren had been refusing to acknowledge that there was any problem with her behavior, and she was unlikely to admit that she needed help. I haven't heard from Lauren since Adam and I talked. I'm not sure if she knows about our conversation, but I suspect she does. The whole situation has left me questioning everything I thought I knew about my sister, and wondering if there were signs I missed along the way. Update 2. It's been 2 months since my last update, and the situation has completely exploded. I honestly don't know where to begin because so much has happened. After Adam and I talked, he went home and tried to have a calm conversation with Lauren about her accusations against Chloe. He said he approached it carefully, trying not to make her feel attacked or defensive. He asked her to walk him through each incident she claimed had happened, thinking that if they discussed it rationally, she might realize her mistakes. Instead, Lauren doubled down on everything. She insisted that Sophie had been flirting with Adam at their engagement party by complimenting his tie and asking about his job. She said that Sophie had been driving by their house frequently, which Adam knew was impossible since Chloe lived across town and had no reason to be in their neighborhood. She claimed that Sophie had been liking Adam's social media posts in a suggestive way, But when Adam showed her the actual posts, there were no likes from Chloe at all. Adam said that Lauren had an explanation for everything. When he showed her proof that contradicted her claims, she said that Sophie had deleted the evidence or that Adam was being manipulated. She accused him of being too trusting and said that he didn't understand how devious women could be. She insisted that she was protecting their marriage from a threat that he was too naive to see. The conversation escalated into a huge fight. Lauren accused Adam of choosing Sophie over his wife and said that his refusal to believe her was proof that Sophie's seduction was working. She demanded that he admit she was right and promised to cut all contact with anyone who defended Chloe, including me. Adam said he couldn't promise that because he knew Lauren's accusations were false. He told her that he was worried about her and suggested that they talk to a counselor together. Lauren took this as another betrayal and said that Adam was trying to gaslight her into thinking she was crazy. The fight went on for hours. Lauren eventually stormed out of the house and went to stay with her parents. She told them that Adam was being manipulated by Chloe and that their marriage was falling apart because of outside interference. She painted herself as the victim of a conspiracy and said that no one was supporting her. Our dad immediately took Lauren's side and called Adam to yell at him about how he was treating his daughter. Our mom was more skeptical, but tried to stay neutral. She called me to ask what I knew about the situation, and I told her about my conversation with Adam. Our mom decided to do her own investigation. She called Sophie and asked her directly about Lauren's accusations. Chloe was horrified and completely denied everything. She said she had barely interacted with Adam and had never been anything but friendly and appropriate. She was devastated to learn that Lauren had been accusing her of trying to steal her husband. Our mom also talked to several people who had been at the engagement party. They all confirmed that Sophie had behaved normally and appropriately. No one had witnessed any flirting or inappropriate behavior. In fact, most people said that Sophie had spent most of the party talking to Lauren and helping with hosting duties. Armed with this information, our mom confronted Lauren. She told her that she had talked to multiple witnesses and that none of them supported Lauren's version of events. She said that Lauren needed to admit she had made mistakes and apologize to both Adam and Chloe. Lauren's response was to accuse our mom of being manipulated too. She said that Chloe had obviously gotten to everyone and turned them against her. She claimed that our mom had never supported her and had always loved Chloe more than her own daughter. She said that our entire family was part of the conspiracy to destroy her marriage. This is when our mom finally lost patience. She told Lauren that she was acting delusional and that she needed professional help. She said that Lauren's behavior was destroying her relationships and that she was going to lose her husband if she didn't get help. Lauren had a complete meltdown. She screamed that everyone was against her and that she was the only one who could see the truth. She accused our mom of being jealous of her marriage and said that our whole family was toxic. She packed her bags and left our parents' house that night. Lauren went back to Adam and demanded that he choose between her and everyone else. She said that if he really loved her, he would cut contact with anyone who didn't believe her about Sophie. She wanted him to stop talking to me, our mom, and several of his friends who had defended Chloe. Adam said he couldn't do that. He told Lauren that she was asking him to isolate himself from his support system based on false accusations. He said he loved her, but couldn't enable her delusions anymore. He suggested that they take a break while Lauren got help. Lauren's response was to accuse Adam of having an affair with Chloe. She said that his refusal to cut contact with people who supported Chloe was proof that he was cheating. She demanded to see his phone, and started going through his messages looking for evidence of infidelity. When Adam refused to hand over his phone, Lauren said it was confirmation that he was hiding something. She started calling him a liar and a cheater. She threatened to tell everyone that he had been unfaithful and that Sophie was a homewrecker. Adam said that was the moment he realized his marriage was over. He told Lauren that he couldn't live with someone who didn't trust him and who was willing to make false accusations against innocent people. He said he was done trying to reason with her and that he wanted a separation. Lauren completely lost it. She started throwing things and screaming that Adam was abandoning her for Sophie. She said that she would never give him a divorce, and that she would make sure everyone knew what kind of man he really was. She threatened to destroy his reputation and his career. Adam packed a bag and left that night. He's been staying with a friend and has barely spoken to Lauren since. He said he feels like he married a stranger, and that he doesn't know who Lauren really is anymore. Since then, Lauren has been on a campaign to destroy everyone who she thinks betrayed her. She's been posting on social media about how her family and friends abandoned her in her time of need. She's been sending nasty messages to Chloe, blaming her for the destruction of her marriage. She's been telling anyone who will listen that Adam is a cheater and that Chloe is a homewrecker. She's also been trying to get me and our mom to take her side. She keeps calling and texting, demanding that we support her and cut contact with Adam and Chloe. When we refuse, she accuses us of being terrible family members who care more about outsiders than our own blood. Our dad is the only one who still believes Lauren's version of events. He's been trying to convince Adam to come back and work things out. He says that Lauren is just scared, and that she'll calm down once she feels secure in her marriage again. He doesn't understand that Lauren's behavior is what's destroying her marriage, not some imaginary threat from Chloe. Last week Adam called me to say that he had filed for divorce. He said he couldn't live with someone who was willing to destroy innocent people to protect her delusions. He said he had tried everything to save their marriage, but Lauren refused to get help or admit that she was wrong. Lauren found out about the divorce papers when Adam's lawyer contacted her. She called me in hysterics, saying that Adam was abandoning her, and that it was all Sophie's fault. She begged me to talk to Adam and convince him to change his mind. I told Lauren that Adam was making the right decision. I said that her behavior had been unacceptable, and that she had destroyed her own marriage with her paranoia and false accusations. I told her that she needed to take responsibility for her actions and get help. Lauren's response was to cut contact with me completely. She said that I was a terrible sister who had chosen strangers over family. She said that she never wanted to see me again, and that I was dead to her. Our mom has been trying to get Lauren to see reason, but Lauren won't listen. She's convinced that everyone is against her, and that she's the victim of a massive conspiracy. She's been living alone in the house that she and Adam bought together, and she's been spiraling further into paranoia and delusion. I talked to Chloe last week. She's been devastated by this whole situation. She said she never imagined that her best friend of 25 years would turn against her so completely. She's been considering moving to another city because she's tired of dealing with Lauren's harassment and false accusations. The worst part is that Lauren doesn't seem to understand that her behavior is what caused all of this. She genuinely believes that she's the victim, and that everyone else is wrong. She's destroyed her marriage, her relationship with her family, and her friendship with Chloe, all because she couldn't accept that her accusations were false. I don't know what's going to happen next. Adam is moving forward with the divorce, and Lauren is threatening to fight it. Our family is completely fractured, and I don't see how we can ever go back to the way things were. Lauren has shown a side of herself that I never knew existed, and I'm not sure I can forgive her for what she's done to the people who loved her. Update 3. It's been 6 months since Adam filed for divorce, and I'm writing this final update because the situation has reached its conclusion. Lauren's behavior has gotten progressively worse, and she's now facing the consequences of her actions. After Lauren cut contact with me, she spent several months trying to rally support for her version of events. She created a detailed social media campaign about how her family had betrayed her and how Chloe had destroyed her marriage. She posted long rants about loyalty and betrayal, sharing screenshots of text conversations taken out of context to make it look like we were all conspiring against her. She also started contacting Adam's friends and co-workers, trying to convince them that he was having an affair with Chloe. She would show up at his workplace and cause scenes, accusing him of being a cheater and a liar. She started following him around town, claiming she was gathering evidence of his infidelity. Adam had to get a restraining order against Lauren after she broke into his apartment and went through his personal belongings. She claimed she was looking for proof of his affair, but of course there was no evidence to find because nothing had happened between him and Chloe. The restraining order was the wake-up call that our dad needed. He finally realized that Lauren's behavior was completely unacceptable, and that she wasn't the victim she claimed to be. He stopped supporting her financially and emotionally, which sent Lauren into an even deeper spiral. Lauren's harassment of Chloe also escalated. She started driving by Sophie's apartment at all hours, leaving nasty notes on her car, and sending threatening messages. She created fake social media accounts to harass Sophie online, and started spreading rumors about her in their professional circles. Chloe eventually had to get her own restraining order, and seriously considered moving to another state. The turning point came when Lauren showed up at Sophie's workplace and caused a huge scene. She accused Sophie of being a homewrecker in front of Sophie's boss and co-workers, screaming that she had destroyed her marriage. Security had to escort Lauren out of the building, and Sophie's employer was so concerned that they offered to help her with legal fees. That incident was the final straw for our mom. She had been trying to maintain some relationship with Lauren, hoping that she would eventually come to her senses. But watching Lauren destroy innocent people's lives while refusing to take any responsibility for her actions was too much. Our mom called Lauren and told her that she was cutting off all contact until Lauren got professional help. She said that Lauren's behavior was unacceptable, and that she wouldn't enable it anymore. She told Lauren that she had lost her husband, her family, and her friends because of her own choices, and that she needed to take responsibility for her actions. Lauren's response was to accuse our mom of abandoning her and choosing Chloe over her own daughter. She said that our mom had never loved her and had always been jealous of her success. She claimed that our mom was part of the conspiracy against her and that she never wanted to see her again. Around this time, the divorce proceedings were heating up. Lauren was fighting the divorce and trying to get alimony and half of Adam's assets. She was also trying to use her false accusations against Sophie as grounds for claiming that Adam had been unfaithful. Her lawyer eventually dropped her case because she couldn't provide any evidence for her claims, and because her behavior was making it impossible to represent her effectively. Lauren had to represent herself in the divorce proceedings, which went about as well as you'd expect. She used the court as a platform to air her grievances against Adam and Chloe, making wild accusations that she couldn't prove. The judge was clearly frustrated with her behavior and warned her multiple times about making false statements. The final divorce hearing was a disaster. Lauren had prepared a presentation about how Adam and Chloe had conspired to destroy her marriage, complete with printed social media posts and text messages that she claimed were evidence of their affair. When the judge asked her to explain how these posts proved infidelity, Lauren couldn't provide a coherent answer. Adam's lawyer systematically debunked each of Lauren's accusations. He presented evidence showing that Lauren had been harassing both Adam and Chloe, including the restraining orders and police reports. He showed that Lauren's accusations were not only false, but that she had been using them to justify increasingly dangerous behavior. The judge granted Adam the divorce and awarded him the majority of their shared assets. He cited Lauren's harassment and false accusations as factors in his decision. Lauren was ordered to pay Adam legal fees and was warned that any further harassment would result in criminal charges. Lauren completely lost it in the courtroom. She started screaming that the judge was corrupt and that everyone was against her. She accused Adam of bribing the judge and claimed that the legal system was part of the conspiracy to destroy her. Security had to escort her out of the courthouse. After the divorce was finalized, Lauren seemed to disappear for a while. She stopped posting on social media and stopped trying to contact any of us. We later found out that she had been evicted from the house she and Adam had shared because she couldn't afford the mortgage on her own. She's apparently been living in a small apartment across town and working at a retail job. She's had to start over completely because she destroyed all of her relationships and burned all of her bridges. I heard from a mutual acquaintance that Lauren has been telling people that she's the victim of a massive conspiracy involving her family, her ex-husband, and her former best friend. She's apparently still convinced that she was right about everything, and that everyone else is wrong. Adam has been doing much better since the divorce was finalized. He's been going to counseling to process everything that happened, and he's slowly rebuilding his social life. He's been dating someone new, and he seems genuinely happy for the first time in years. Chloe decided to stay in town, but has been keeping a low profile. She's been focusing on her career, and has been slowly rebuilding her confidence after months of harassment. She's been dating someone new as well, and she seems to be doing better. As for me, I've been processing everything that happened with my own counselor. Watching my sister transform into someone I didn't recognize was traumatic, and I've had to accept that the Lauren I grew up with might not exist anymore. I've been trying to focus on my own life and relationships instead of dwelling on what happened. Our mom has been struggling with guilt and sadness about losing her daughter. She's been wondering if there were signs she missed, or if she could have done something differently. She's been going to grief counseling because she says it feels like Lauren died even though she's still alive. Our dad has been the most affected by everything. He feels terrible for enabling Lauren's behavior for so long, and for not seeing how destructive she had become. He's been trying to reach out to Adam and Chloe to apologize, but he understands that they might not be ready to forgive him. I don't know if Lauren will ever get the help she needs, or if she'll ever realize what she's done. Part of me hopes that she'll eventually come to her senses and try to make amends. But another part of me knows that some damage can't be undone. She destroyed so many relationships and hurt so many people that even if she apologized, it might not be enough. The whole situation has taught me that you can't really know someone until you see how they handle adversity. Lauren's reaction to perceived threats revealed a side of her that none of us knew existed. She chose to destroy the people who loved her rather than face the possibility that she might be wrong. I still think about that night at the wedding sometimes. I wonder if things would have turned out differently if I had handled the situation another way. But I also know that Lauren's problems went much deeper than one argument at a reception. Her willingness to fabricate an entire narrative about Sophie trying to steal her husband shows that she was struggling with issues that none of us understood. The hardest part is accepting that Lauren made her choices. She chose to believe false accusations over evidence. She chose to push away everyone who tried to help her. She chose to harass innocent people rather than get professional help. She chose to destroy her marriage rather than admit she was wrong. I've had to accept that the sister I grew up with is gone. The Lauren who laughed with Sophie over silly inside jokes and included her in every family event wouldn't recognize the person who spent months harassing her best friend based on imaginary slights. I don't know if that person was always there underneath, or if something fundamental changed in Lauren, but either way, she's not coming back. Our family will never be the same. There's an Lauren-shaped hole in every holiday and family gathering. Our mom still sets a place for her at Christmas dinner out of habit, then quietly removes it. Our dad still talks about her in present tense sometimes, as if she's just temporarily away, instead of permanently gone, but we're learning to move forward. Adam has become like a brother to me, and we check in on each other regularly. Chloe and I have maintained our friendship, though we avoid talking about Lauren. Our parents are working on healing their own relationship after all the stress and conflict. I don't regret standing up to Lauren at her wedding. Someone needed to call out her behavior, and I'm glad it was me rather than letting Chloe continue to suffer in silence. But I do regret that it took so long for all of us to see how far gone Lauren really was. Sometimes I wonder if Lauren is happy in her new life, living alone with her version of the truth. Part of me hopes she is, because the alternative is too sad to think about. But mostly I try not to think about her at all anymore. She made her choices, and now we all have to live with the consequences. The strangest part is that Lauren got exactly what she wanted. She successfully removed Chloe from her life and cut ties with anyone who supported her. She's living in a world where she's the victim and everyone else is the villain. I just don't think she realized how lonely that world would be. I'm sharing this story because I want people to understand that sometimes family members make choices that force you to choose between enabling their destructive behavior and protecting innocent people. I chose to protect Chloe and Adam, even though it meant losing my sister. I still believe it was the right choice, even though it cost me more than I ever imagined. If someone in your life is making false accusations and refusing to listen to reason, don't enable them. Don't sacrifice innocent people to keep the peace. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do for someone is to stop supporting their delusions, even if it means they'll push you away. Lauren taught me that blood doesn't automatically make someone family, and that real family is the people who support you, without asking you to destroy others. Adam and Chloe have been better family to me over the past year than Lauren was in the months leading up to her wedding. I hope Lauren finds peace someday, but I can't sacrifice my own peace waiting for her to change. She knows where to find me if she ever decides to get help and make amends, but I'm not holding my breath. Some bridges, once burned, can never be rebuilt. My ex cheated with my best friend. Years later, I crashed her wedding as my fake girlfriend's date, and we left the reception in total ruins. Lila was the girl in the office that made managers forget about their wives. I was the new guy who only spoke to people about code. But then she explained that her hated cousin's wedding was in 90 days, and she needed someone tall and handsome so her family would stop pressuring her to find someone. What she conveniently forgot to mention is that the cousin getting married was Serena's cousin, my ex who had left me for my best friend. We drew up an actual contract on my laptop right there. No kissing, hand-holding only when necessary. We'd break up a week after the wedding, and we'd split any cash gift 60-40 since she was paying me. She made me practice my boyfriend voice in the supply closet. "You sound like you're reading a hostage note," she said, fixing my collar. I had to practice calling her babe without cringing. Rehearse how we met until our story was bulletproof. She taught me her dad liked football, and her mom would judge my shoes. The first time I met her parents, I said we met at a conference while she said coffee shop. Her mom's eyebrow raised exactly 1 millimeter, but her dad laughed and said, "Can't keep your stories straight." Must be true love. They grilled me for hours. I left with them believing I owned a ranch back in Canada. Lila made a show of kissing my cheek on the way out. Very theatrical, very fake. But then, 2 weeks in, things started shifting subtly. At work, we kept our distance, separate lunch breaks, minimal interaction, but she'd started bringing me coffee without asking. Just left it on my desk with a sticky note for the performance tonight. Oat milk latte, extra shot, which I'd never told her. The family dinners were exhausting at first. All performance, hand-holding that felt like a business handshake, practice smiles. But by the third dinner, I wasn't checking my watch anymore. Her dad and I actually talked football. Her mom taught me recipes while Lila watched with this unreadable expression. Family game night changed everything. When we destroyed her siblings at charades, her dad pulled me aside. I've never seen her this comfortable with someone. That night in the car, Lila was quiet. "Sorry," she said suddenly. "For what?" I asked. "Just all of this. Everything I'm putting you through." I thought she meant the fake relationship. Looking back, she was apologizing for what was coming. Our text conversations evolved too. First just logistics. Dinner at 7 p.m., blue shirt. Then she'd text after family events, "You did good tonight." Then random thoughts at midnight. Then, "You awake?" at 2 a.m., followed by 40 messages about coworkers, movies, anything. She'd mention my idiot ex, who fumbled the best guy ever, and I'd tense up. "Seriously, who cheats on someone that amazing?" she'd push, watching my reaction. "Some people make mistakes," I'd mumble, and she'd look away, guilty about something I didn't understand yet. One night at the office, both staying late, we finally acknowledged it. "This is getting complicated," I said. "It's just method acting," she insisted. But her hands were shaking. "Lila, you brought me soup when I was sick last week. That wasn't for your family." She stood up, frustrated. "So what if I care?" "We need to stick to the contract," I said weakly. "Right," she agreed. But her nephew's birthday party was when pretending became impossible. I did dinosaur voices to make him laugh, and when I looked up, Lila was staring at me like I'd solved world hunger. Other moms kept asking how long we'd been together, and she'd get this soft look. The cake tasting was what broke us both. She started sobbing over chocolate versus vanilla, but I couldn't understand why. I held her in the parking lot while she ugly cried into my shirt. "I'm so sorry, Alan. I'm so sorry." "It's not your fault," I said. "Yes it is," she whispered. And no matter what I said, she refused to feel less guilty. "Pretending to care about you is killing me," I finally admitted one night. She looked like she might cry. "Alan. There's something." I perked up, but then she couldn't bring herself to say it. "After the wedding," she said. "We'll talk after the wedding." That's when it happened. The rehearsal dinner was the first time I would meet her cousin, the bride. I walked in confident, her hand in mine, ready to charm great aunts and distant cousins. I had been genuinely looking forward to it, just to spend more time with Lila. But then I saw her, Serena, in a pearly white dress. We locked eyes, and suddenly the world stopped. Her champagne glass froze halfway to her lips. Then the worst possible thing happened. Kian stepped out from behind her, my ex-best friend wearing a matching pearl white tie. The three of us stood frozen while Lila's relatives milled around, clutching cocktails. Lila went rigid, and when I looked at her, I saw it. This was what she had been apologizing for. Serena started storming toward us. Kian followed her, saying, Wait. I can't do this." I turned to Lila. "Please." Her voice broke, but I was already walking out, leaving her standing there with her hand still extended toward where mine had been. She followed me to the parking lot. "Please, just get through dinner. You knew they'd be here." "I didn't know about Kian, but you knew about Serena. That wasn't a question." "Alan, I originally just wanted," I cut her off. I told her I needed time, then got in my car and left. She had to walk back in and make up some excuse about food poisoning. She texted me all evening, 72 messages and 21 calls I didn't respond to. But then next morning at 4 a.m., she showed up at my door. "The wedding's in 10 hours. Please," she sobbed. I stood there, not knowing what to do. She was shaking so hard her teeth were chattering, even though it was warm outside. I opened the door wider, and she practically fell through it. Her makeup had run down her face in black streaks, and her dress from the rehearsal dinner was wrinkled like she'd slept in her car. The neighbors across the hall had cracked their door open to watch, so I pulled her inside before they called security. She collapsed onto my couch and immediately started digging through her purse with trembling hands. Her phone screen lit up with dozens of missed calls from her family. She swiped past them and pulled up old photos from her camera roll. Two girls in matching red Christmas sweaters smiled at the camera, maybe 12 years old. Lila pointed at the taller one with perfect teeth. That was Serena. They looked like sisters almost. Same nose, same chin. But Serena's smile was bigger and brighter, even back then. Lila scrolled to another photo from high school where Serena wore a crown at what looked like homecoming, while Lila stood in the background. Another photo showed them at some family party where everyone surrounded Serena, while Lila sat alone at a side table. My chest got tight as the pieces started clicking together in my head. She'd known exactly who my ex was when she hired me for this fake boyfriend job. She'd known I'd walk into that rehearsal dinner and see the woman who destroyed me. My hands started shaking too, but from anger, not sadness. Lila must have seen my face change, because she grabbed my arm and shook her head so hard her earrings rattled. She tried to explain that, yes, At first she just wanted to show up with someone impressive to make Serena jealous for once in her life. But then everything changed when she actually got to know me. The coffee she brought me every morning, the soup when I was sick, the way she cried at the cake tasting. None of that was fake. Her voice cracked as she talked about how Serena always got everything first. Better grades, even though Lila studied harder. The lead in every school play while Lila worked backstage. The promotion at their grandmother's company that Lila had been promised. When Serena announced her engagement at Thanksgiving, their mom literally turned to Lila and asked why she couldn't be more like her cousin. I walked to the kitchen because I needed to do something with my hands before I punched a wall. My body went through the motions of making coffee without thinking about it. 2 scoops of grounds, water to the 4-cup line. Then I reached for the oat milk without even realizing I was making her drink, not mine. Extra shot of espresso. No sugar. Exactly how she liked it. My hands shook as I poured, and I had to admit to myself that I'd memorized every little thing about her without meaning to. She followed me to the kitchen and pulled up her text messages to show me dozens of unsent drafts from weeks ago. Each one started with her trying to tell me the truth. About Serena. The timestamps showed she'd written them at 2 a.m., 3 a.m., right after our family dinners. But she never sent them, because every time I mentioned my ex, my whole face would change, and she couldn't stand being the one to hurt me like that again. The anger came rushing back, and I slammed the coffee mug down so hard that liquid splashed onto the counter. She knew I'd walk into that room and see them together. She knew what that would do to me after everything I'd told her about the betrayal. Oliver's toy dinosaur sat on my coffee table where he'd left it last week when they'd stopped by after his swimming lesson. Seeing it made everything worse, because her whole family had become part of my life, and now it was all built on lies. Lila completely fell apart then, sliding down the kitchen cabinet until she sat on my floor, sobbing. She kept saying she'd tried to prepare me by bringing up my ex in conversations to see if I was ready to face her. She thought she could somehow make it easier, but she was too scared to just tell the truth. Her whole body shook as she admitted she'd fallen for me and ruined everything because she was a coward. My phone started buzzing on the counter with text after text. What's really going through Lila's mind when she picks this specific guy for her scheme? She calls him tall and handsome, but there's something deliberate about choosing someone who only spoke to people about code. Makes me wonder if she wanted someone she thought wouldn't get too attached, or ask too many questions about her real motives. Grant asking if I was okay and saying they were worried about me. Claire saying Lila had left the dinner crying, and nobody knew where either of us went. Even little Oliver had sent a voice message that his mom helped him record, asking where Uncle Alan was and why Aunt Lila was so sad. Each message made my chest hurt more, because these people had become real family to me over the past 2 months. I sat down on the kitchen floor across from her because my legs felt too heavy to keep standing. The wedding would start in 9 hours, and I had no idea what to do about any of this. She looked up at me with red, swollen eyes, and said I should choose what happens next, and she'd accept whatever I decided. The clock on my microwave showed 4:47 a.m., and we sat there on my kitchen floor in silence, while the coffee maker gurgled and dripped behind us. She finally pushed herself up from my kitchen floor and started laying out options while pacing around my tiny apartment. Option 1 was, I could come to the wedding, and we'd stick to the contract like nothing changed. Pure business. She'd even pay me extra on top of the $1,000 we agreed on, and after today, she'd never bother me again if that's what I wanted. Option 2 was, I could stay home, and she'd tell everyone we broke up, make up some story about how I wasn't ready for commitment, or whatever would make her family stop asking questions. I watched her hands shake as I gripped the counter and asked what option 3 was, even though I wasn't sure why I was asking. Her whole body went still, and she turned to look at me with this expression I'd never seen before. Option 3 was, we could go to this wedding together, not as fake anything, but as whatever we actually were to each other now. Facing this whole mess as real people instead of actors playing parts. The words hung there between us while the sun started coming up through my kitchen window. She waited for maybe 30 seconds before grabbing her keys and saying she needed to go get ready, but I should text her whatever I decided. After she left, I sat at my laptop, staring at our contract file with all the notes I'd been keeping for 3 months. There were pages of details about her family members and their quirks, inside jokes we'd created during dinners, screenshots from her mom's Facebook where she'd posted photos of us at family events, looking happier than I remembered feeling at the time. My phone buzzed with a text from Kian, saying he knew things were weird, but both he and Serena really wanted me at the wedding, and asking if we could talk. I deleted it immediately, but took a screenshot first, because something in my gut said I should document everything from here on out. The suit Lila had helped me pick. 3 weeks ago was hanging in my closet, and I pulled it on just to see how it looked. She'd spent over an hour at the store making sure the fit was perfect, smoothing down the lapels and stepping back to look at me from different angles while telling me I looked like James Bond, then turning red when she realized how excited she sounded. My phone rang, and Grant's name showed up on the screen. He said he didn't know what happened last night, but Lila hadn't been herself lately. And these past weeks with me were the happiest he'd seen her since she was a kid. Just thought I should know before making any decisions about today. After hanging up, I drove to the wedding venue but parked across the street instead of in the actual lot. Guests were starting to arrive in fancy cars, and I watched from my driver's seat as a white limo pulled up, and Serena stepped out in her wedding dress, looking perfect and laughing at something the photographer said. The weird thing was, it didn't hurt the way I thought it would. More like watching a movie about strangers than seeing my ex who destroyed me. My phone lit up with a text from Lila, saying she was at the venue and had told everyone I had food poisoning, but might show up if I felt better. No pressure though, and she attached a photo of the place card with my name still sitting next to hers at the family table. Her mom had saved it just in case. Through my windshield, I spotted Oliver in his tiny tuxedo, standing near the entrance, looking around with his sad expression while Harper bent down to whisper something to him. He shook his head and clutched the stuffed dinosaur I'd given him at his birthday party, the one he'd named Rex, and carried everywhere. Now, my chest got tight watching this little kid search the crowd for me while wedding guests streamed past him into the building. Someone knocked on my car window, and I jumped hard enough to hit my head on the roof. Serena stood there in her wedding dress, with the fabric pooling around her feet on the asphalt, gesturing for me to roll down the window. When I did, she immediately launched into this speech about how she needed to explain about Keon, and how it wasn't supposed to happen the way I thought it did. The thing that struck me wasn't what she was saying, but what she wasn't saying, because there was no actual apology in any of it, just her trying to control how the story sounded. I finally cut her off by asking how exactly it was supposed to happen. Then she started fumbling with her words while adjusting her dress against the morning breeze. She managed to get out something about how they just fell in love, and it was messy but real. Then she actually said she needed me to forgive them so everyone could move forward. The way she said it made my hands tighten on the steering wheel. I told her I didn't forgive her and didn't need to. I said she made her choice, but this wasn't about her anymore. Her face went through about 6 different expressions before she asked why I was even here. Then, that's when it hit me exactly why I'd driven all the way here. I rolled up the window while she was still standing there and drove toward the venue parking lot. The ceremony was already starting when I walked through the heavy wooden doors. Every head in the back rows turned, but I kept walking down the side aisle. Lila's eyes went huge when she spotted me sliding into the empty seat beside her. I took her hand without thinking about it, not for show but because I wanted to. She squeezed back so hard my knuckles cracked. During the vows, when Keon stood up there promising to be faithful, I felt Lila's whole body go rigid beside me. She leaned over and whispered, "We could leave if I wanted." I whispered back that we were seeing this through to the end. Claire was sitting on Lila's other side and gave me this small approving nod. The reading started, and Oliver scrambled out of Harper's lap and climbed into mine instead. He started whispering about dinosaurs while the reader droned on about love and commitment. His little hands were making pterodactyl wings against my chest. This moment felt more real than anything I'd experienced with Serena in our entire 2 years together. Lila was watching us with this look on her face I couldn't figure out. The reception moved to the ballroom next door, and we found our table assignment on the seating chart. Table 3 put us right with Serena's parents, who kept shooting looks at me every few seconds. Her mom's mouth was this tight line, while her dad wouldn't make eye contact at all. Lila handled their awkward questions like she'd been doing this her whole life, deflecting and redirecting with practiced ease. I focused on cutting Oliver's chicken into dinosaur shapes while he narrated an entire prehistoric battle. During cocktail hour, Keon cornered me by the bar while I was getting Lila a drink. He started with this whole speech about how we needed to clear the air between us. I set down the glasses and stood up slowly to face him. I told him we weren't bros, and never would be again. I said he slept with my girlfriend while pretending to be my friend, and there was nothing to clear. His face went red, and he stepped closer like he might actually try something at his own wedding. Lila appeared between us before anything could happen. She told Keon maybe he should focus on his bride instead of harassing her boyfriend on his wedding day. The way she said boyfriend hung in the air because she didn't add the word fake in front of it. Keon backed off and stalked away while Lila's hand found mine again. Grant caught up with me during the cigar break on the terrace after dinner. He lit his Cuban and started talking about how he and Claire actually had an arranged marriage. At first, he said, it took them 3 years to fall in love for real, but now he couldn't imagine life without her. He looked at me through the smoke and said, "Sometimes the best things start as business arrangements." We stood there watching the sunset, while wedding music drifted through the French doors. Back inside for dinner, Serena's maid of honor got up to give her speech about true love conquering all obstacles. She kept making these pointed looks at me every time she said the word obstacles. Under the table, Lila's hand found mine and held on tight. The maid of honor finally sat down after her speech, and servers started clearing plates while the DJ grabbed his mic to announce the bouquet toss. All the single women crowded onto the dance floor, except Lila, who stayed in her seat, shaking her head until her sister Harper physically dragged her out there. Serena stood at the front in her white dress, holding her bouquet and scanning the crowd of women behind her with this weird smile. She turned around and locked eyes directly with Lila, then spun back and threw the bouquet hard, like she was trying to knock someone out with it. The flowers sailed straight at Lila's face, and she caught them purely out of reflex to protect herself from getting hit. Serena turned around with this nasty smirk and said, loud enough for everyone to hear, that maybe Lila would be next if she could find someone real. The whole room went quiet for a second, and I saw Lila's face go from shocked to furious in about half a second. Catching a bouquet out of self-defense while your ex-best friend throws shade at your wedding, now that's a plot twist worthy of its own reality show. Someone call the producers, because this reception just got spicy. She stood up suddenly and somehow had a microphone in her hand before I could even process what was happening. I reached for her arm to pull her back down, but she was already talking into the mic, saying she wanted to make a toast to her cousin, Serena. The room went dead silent, and even the servers stopped moving as Lila raised her champagne glass and said, Serena always got what she wanted. She kept going, saying whether it was the promotion at their grandma's company, or the bigger wedding budget, or even other people's boyfriends. Gasps went through the crowd, and I saw Grant sit up straighter while Claire's mouth fell open in shock. Lila wasn't done though, and thanked Serena because her choices had led Lila to me, to Alan. Serena's face went completely white, and she tried to tell Lila to stop, but Lila kept talking into the mic. She said, I had spent 3 months pretending to love her for money, only to discover what we had was more real than anything Serena and Kian built on lies. The room exploded into chaos, with people talking over each other, and Claire trying to stand up to restore order while Grant actually started laughing at the worst possible moment. Serena's parents were demanding to know what was going on and pointing at Lila, while other relatives were pulling out their phones to record everything. I stood up and took the microphone from Lila's hand, before she could say anything else that would make this worse. I told everyone she was right about it starting fake, but that watching Lila with her family, and seeing her kindness and strength, had made me fall for real. Then I turned to look directly at Serena and Kian, who were both frozen in place, looking like they wanted to disappear. I thanked Serena for cheating on me and thanked Kian for being exactly who he was, because they both led me to find someone who actually fought for me. I turned back to Lila and said she fought for me even when she was scared of losing me, and even when I didn't deserve it. Serena grabbed her bouquet from where Lila had dropped it and threw it hard at Lila's head, screaming that she had ruined the wedding. Lila caught it and threw it right back, yelling that Serena had ruined my life first, so they were even. The two cousins started moving toward each other, and their parents had to physically hold them back while security guards in black suits rushed in from the lobby. 2 guards grabbed me and Lila by the arms and started walking us toward the exit, while the wedding guests were all standing and shouting. Claire followed us out, surprising me by how calm she seemed compared to the chaos behind us. She told us what we did was inappropriate, but then smiled just a little bit and said it wasn't undeserved since Serena had always been a bully. She said she was glad someone finally said what everyone had been thinking for years, before going back inside to deal with the mess. The security guards walked us all the way to the parking lot and stood there watching to make sure we actually left. Lila and I climbed onto the hood of my car, still wearing our formal clothes, and watched through the big windows as people inside tried to calm down. We could see Serena crying while Kian tried to comfort her, and the DJ awkwardly trying to get people to dance again. Lila looked at me and asked if we were still breaking up a week after the wedding like our contract said. I didn't answer right away, because honestly, I had no idea what to say, or what I even wanted anymore. We sat there for another hour, watching the disaster we had caused, until security came out and told us to leave the property completely. The next morning, my phone was going crazy with notifications, and I had 47 messages from numbers I didn't recognize. Someone had posted the whole thing on TikTok, and it already had 2 million views with the caption about the bride's cousin exposing a fake relationship and affair at the wedding. Lila texted me that we were apparently famous now, and also she was definitely getting fired when she went to work on Monday. Her boss had already seen the video and wanted to talk to her about representing the company poorly or something like that. I watched the video myself and saw how crazy we both looked, standing there with microphones, calling out the bride at her own wedding. The comments were split between people saying we were heroes for exposing cheaters, and others saying we were awful for ruining someone's special day. Lila's mom called me 3 times, but I didn't answer because I had no idea what to say to her after everything. Grant left me a voicemail just laughing and saying that was the most entertaining wedding he had ever been to in 60 years. My own parents started texting, asking if the video going around was really me and what the hell I was thinking causing a scene like that. The video kept spreading, and by noon it had 5 million views, and someone had already made a remix with dramatic music added. Lila came over to my apartment that afternoon, looking exhausted and carrying a box of her stuff from the office because they had already let her go. She sat on my couch, and we just stared at each other, not knowing what to say about the complete disaster we had created together. The next morning, we decided to meet at the coffee shop on 3rd Street, where we used to practice our fake couple stories before family dinners. I got there first and ordered my usual while watching the morning crowd rush past the windows. Lila walked in 10 minutes later, looking tired but determined. And when the barista saw us together, he practically jumped over the counter. He kept saying we were legends and showed us his phone, where the wedding video had another 1 million views overnight, then refused to let us pay for our drinks. We found a corner table away from everyone and sat there stirring our coffees without talking for a while. I finally asked when it stopped being fake for her. She stared at her latte and told me it was the night I made dinosaur voices for Oliver at his birthday party, when I didn't know she was watching and there was no one to perform for. Her phone started buzzing on the table, and she almost ignored it, but then saw it was her boss calling. She put it on speaker, and instead of yelling like we expected, he was laughing and talking about how the wedding video was the best thing to ever happen to their company's social media presence. Marketing wanted to meet with her about doing a whole campaign around it, and he offered her a promotion on the spot. We were both processing this when the coffee shop door chimed, and Serena walked in, still wearing her honeymoon sundress with sand on her sandals. She marched straight to our table and started going off about how we destroyed her life, and the video was everywhere, and Kian's parents wanted an annulment now. She wasn't wrong about the mess, but she also wasn't taking any responsibility for what she did to me first. Lila stayed quiet for a moment, then told her calmly that she destroyed my life first, but the difference was, I rebuilt it into something better. Serena turned to me and asked if I really loved Lila, or if this whole thing was just revenge. The answer came out simple and clear. I told her I loved Lila. Not because of revenge or the contract, but because she brought me soup when I was sick, and memorized how I took my coffee, and fought for me even when I walked away. Serena stood there for a second, looking deflated, then turned and left without another word. Lila was staring at me with this expression I couldn't read and said I just told her I loved her. I nodded, and she asked if that was part of the performance. I reminded her the contract ended when we left the wedding yesterday. She took a deep breath and said she needed to tell me something. There was no $1,000, because she spent all her savings on the suit she bought me and all those family dinners we went to. She was completely broke and couldn't have paid me even if she wanted to. I started laughing, maybe a little too hard, and asked if she really hired me as a fake boyfriend with money she didn't have. She nodded, looking miserable, and said she was desperate and stupid and figured she would find the money somehow before the 3 months were up. We sat there in silence for a minute while I processed this information. Then I pulled out my phone and deleted the contract document we had made that first day in the office. I told her it was a good thing I wasn't in it for the money. Then she looked up at me hopefully and asked if I really wasn't doing it for the money. I told her about practicing my boyfriend voice alone in my apartment for hours until my throat hurt. About the notebook I kept hidden in my desk drawer with all her favorite things written down. The oat milk lattes she liked. The way she hated cilantro but loved basil. How she always touched her ear when she was nervous. I pulled out my phone and showed her the Amazon order history full of dinosaur toys I'd been buying for Oliver with my own money. Her eyes got wide when she saw the total. Before she could respond, the coffee shop door banged open and Grant and Claire walked in looking serious. Claire said they figured we'd be here and that the family was having an emergency meeting. Grant looked right at me and said I was still family no matter what happened. We followed them to their house, where the living room was packed with people I recognized from all those family dinners. Serena's parents were standing near the window, demanding apologies, while everyone else sat wherever they could find space. In the center sat an older woman I'd never met before, watching everything with sharp eyes. This had to be Grandma Johnson that everyone always talked about. The room went quiet when we walked in. Grandma finally spoke, her voice cutting through the tension like a knife. She said Serena stole her cousin's boyfriend's friend, and Lila disrupted a wedding, bringing shame to the family. Then she turned to look at me, and her face softened just a bit. Grandma Johnson shows up now, after all this mess already happened. I'm curious why the family matriarch who runs the company waited until after the wedding disaster to get involved, when she clearly knows everything about Serena's behavior and Lila's situation. She said I could have caused a scene at the rehearsal dinner but removed myself instead. Could have abandoned Lila today but stood by her. Said this was the kind of man they wanted in their family. Serena's parents started protesting, but Grandma raised one hand, and they went silent immediately. Harper stood up from the couch and said Oliver hadn't stopped talking about me for weeks. Said kids know when someone really cares, and that wasn't fake. Oliver ran over and wrapped his arms around my leg, asking if I'd still teach him about pterodactyls. I picked him up, and he buried his face in my shoulder. That's when the front door slammed open so hard it hit the wall. Keon stormed in, looking like he hadn't slept, his tie loose and his hair a mess. He started yelling about how insane this family was, how the wedding was ruined and the honeymoon canceled. Said his parents thought he was a homewrecker now. Serena turned on him fast, screaming that he was a homewrecker, and so was she. They started fighting right there in front of everyone, their voices getting louder and uglier. Serena admitted she went after Keon partly to hurt me for not proposing fast enough after 3 years together. Keon shot back that he was jealous of my promotion and my relationship, and wanted what I had. Their marriage was falling apart in real time while 40 relatives watched with their mouths open. Grandma stood up and told them both to get out until they could act like adults. They left separately, Serena crying and Keon slamming the door again. 2 hours later, after everyone had gone home and Grant and Claire were cleaning up, Lila and I sat in her childhood bedroom. Her teenage posters were still on the walls, mixed with photos from the past 3 months that her mom must have printed and framed. Pictures of us at family dinners, at Oliver's birthday, at the cake tasting where she cried. She asked what we were supposed to do now. I told her we should date for real this time. No contracts or payments or performances, just us figuring out if what we had was real without all the fake stuff around it. She looked scared and asked, "What if we were only good at pretending?" I reached over and pulled her close, kissing her right there on my doorstep, with no one watching, no family to perform for. Just us. She froze for a second, then kissed me back, her hands grabbing my shirt. When we pulled apart, she was breathing hard and looking at me like she'd never seen me before. We agreed to try for real this time. No contracts or fake stories or rehearsed conversations. The next week at work was weird because everyone had seen the wedding video that went viral. Apparently someone's cousin posted it, and it got millions of views. My manager called me into his office looking worried about the company's image. But then the CEO walked in laughing and said it was the best PR we'd gotten in years. Made us look human, instead of just another tech company. He even gave me a bonus for, quote-unquote, brand enhancement. Lila and I had to figure out new rules now that we were actually dating. We kept our separate apartments, planned real dates where we didn't practice what to say beforehand, and it was harder than pretending because now everything mattered. 3 weeks later, my phone buzzed with a text from Serena asking if we could meet. Lila saw it over my shoulder and tensed up, but I decided I needed closure. We met at a coffee shop downtown, where Serena showed up looking tired, papers in her hand that turned out to be annulment documents she'd already filed. She stirred her coffee for 5 minutes before finally talking. She said even when we were supposed to be fake, Lila and I had more chemistry than she and Keon ever had. She admitted she'd been wrong about how she ended things with me, but wasn't sorry they ended because we weren't right for each other. She said I was better with Lila, and that was probably the closest thing to closure I'd ever get from her. That same week, Keon sent me this long email, trying to explain his side, asking for forgiveness, saying he'd been drunk and stupid, and it just happened. I read it 3 times, but didn't respond or delete it, because some bridges aren't meant to be rebuilt, just left as ruins you drive past sometimes. A month later was Oliver's actual birthday party, not a performance this time. When he introduced me to his friends as his uncle, who knew everything about dinosaurs, Lila got tears in her eyes, watching me do all the voices for his dinosaur toys. Claire pulled me aside while the kids were eating cake. She looked at me for a long moment, then said she'd known it was fake from the start. Because mothers always know. But she also saw the exact moment it became real. She thanked me for not giving up on Lila after she lied about Serena. Grant came over and handed me something wrapped in cloth, his father's watch that had been in their family for 3 generations. He said it stays in the family, and pushed it into my hands when I tried to refuse. He said I'd earned it by standing by Lila when she was at her worst, when most guys would have walked away. 2 months after that, Lila and I had our first real fight, about money of all things. She kept insisting she needed to pay me back the $1,000 she'd promised, even though she never actually had it. I told her the whole thing was ridiculous, since we were together now, but she wouldn't let it go. Said it was about keeping her word. We argued in my apartment for 2 hours, her pacing back and forth while I sat on the couch, trying to make her see reason. She grabbed a pillow from the couch and threw it at me, hard enough to knock my coffee over. Then started pacing again, while I cleaned up the mess with paper towels from the kitchen. The more we argued, the louder we got, until the neighbors started banging on the wall and we both froze mid-shout. She looked at me, with my shirt soaked in coffee, and started giggling, then full-on laughing until she couldn't breathe. I started laughing too, because here we were, fighting about fake money from our fake relationship, while living together in a real one. She collapsed next to me on the wet couch, still wheezing about the whole stupid thing. After we calmed down, she got this serious look and went to my kitchen cabinet, pulled out an empty pickle jar, and wrote "Truth Jar" on it with a Sharpie. "Every lie from now on costs $5, she said. Even tiny ones, like saying you're fine when you're not, and the money goes to our first real vacation." I immediately had to put in $20 for various work excuses, and she put in 15 for telling her mom we were too busy to visit last weekend. The jar filled up fast that first week. 3 months later, everything changed when Grant called us over for Sunday dinner, but wouldn't say why. We found the whole family gathered around Claire's laptop, watching some viral video about wedding disasters that turned into love stories. There we were at Serena's wedding, the fight, the kiss, everything, with over 2 million views and comments about how we were relationship goals. Someone had done research and posted that Serena and Kian's marriage lasted exactly 3 weeks before she caught him with her yoga instructor. Meanwhile, photos of Lila and me at the farmer's market the previous weekend were being shared everywhere as proof that fake relationships can become real. Love. The video licensing company contacted us that week, offering $5,000 for exclusive rights. 2 weeks after that, Lila's grandmother, who everyone just called Grandma Miller, invited us to her house for tea, just us, no one else. She lived in this massive Victorian in Pacific Heights that probably cost more than I'd make in 10 lifetimes. We sat in her parlor while she poured Earl Grey into actual china cups that looked older than the house. She put down her teacup and announced she was rewriting her will because Serena showed poor judgment. Lila showed courage, but I showed character, and that mattered most. She'd already called her lawyer and wanted us there when she signed the changes. The news spread through the family within hours. Serena called Lila, screaming that we'd manipulated a senile old woman, that we planned the whole fake relationship to steal her inheritance. Grant and Claire took our side, but Serena convinced her brother and 2 cousins that we were con artists. The family split into camps, with accusations flying on the group text that got so ugly, Claire finally deleted it. Serena hired some expensive lawyer from her father's firm to contest the will change, claiming undue influence and fraud. The lawyer sent us a letter, full of legal threats about elder abuse and conspiracy, that made my hands shake when I read it. We used the money from the viral video to hire our own lawyer, this woman named Patricia, who'd handled Claire's friend's divorce. She reviewed everything, our text messages, the contract I'd stupidly saved on my laptop, the timeline of our relationship, then leaned back in her chair. "The timeline actually helps us," she said, because our relationship clearly predated any will changes, and she found it ironic that our fake documentation would serve as real evidence. The depositions were brutal. 6 hours of questions about every detail of our relationship, under oath. When did the fake parts end, and the real parts begin? What was performance, and what was genuine? Every text message dissected for meaning. Lila cried twice during hers, and I threw up in the courthouse bathroom during a break in mine. But it felt weirdly good too, finally telling the complete truth about everything, even the embarrassing parts, like practicing boyfriend voice in the supply closet. Serena's lawyer presented our original contract in court like he'd found the smoking gun, reading it out loud with dramatic pauses. But then, Patricia presented the marketing company's whole campaign as counter-evidence, showing we'd been publicly together for months since the wedding, with no contract needed. She had receipts from dinners, tagged photos from friends, even security footage from my apartment building showing Lila basically living there. Serena's lawyer reading their fake dating contract out loud in court, like he's performing Shakespeare, while Patricia just casually pulls out security footage, is peak legal drama comedy. Nothing says true love like documented evidence and time-stamped receipts. The judge asked pointed questions about the contract terms versus our actual relationship timeline. The night before the ruling, Lila couldn't sleep, kept tossing and turning, until I finally turned on the light at 3 a.m. She sat up, panicking about losing everything, her family, the money, maybe even me if this went badly. I reminded her we started with nothing real, and built something anyway. That we were good at making fake things true. She kissed me then, really kissed me. Not like the wedding performance but like she needed to make sure I was real. 2 weeks later, we sat in the courtroom, holding hands so tight my fingers went numb while the judge read her decision. She ruled completely in our favor, stating the will changes were made by a competent adult, with no evidence of coercion. But then she added something that made Serena storm out of the courtroom. She noted that what began as deception evolved into genuine affection, which, she said, was more than could be said for many relationships that start honestly, clearly referring to Serena's 3-week marriage. Serena just stood there for a second, then her face crumpled and she started crying right there in the courtroom. Not the angry tears I expected, but tired ones, like she'd been holding them back for months. She slumped into her chair and covered her face with both hands, while her lawyer awkwardly patted her shoulder. Grandma Parker walked over and put a hand on Serena's arm, offering her a tissue from her purse. She said something quiet that made Serena look up, and after a minute, Serena nodded and signed some papers her lawyer pulled out. Later I found out Grandma Parker offered her a smaller part of the inheritance if she agreed to get therapy, which Serena accepted without fighting. 2 days later, my phone buzzed with a text from Milo, suggesting we all grab a beer and move forward. I stared at it for maybe 10 seconds before deleting it and blocking his number. Lila watched me do it and squeezed my hand, but didn't say anything. Some things you forgive, and some you just leave behind. 3 weeks passed before Lila suggested we go back to the coffee shop where we'd written our fake boyfriend contract. The same barista was working and recognized us, making a joke about framing our original contract since we'd become regulars. Instead of laughing, Lila pulled out a notebook and started writing something new. Not a contract this time, but a list of promises, real ones without payment terms or breakup clauses. She wrote that she promised to tell me when she was scared. I wrote that I promised to stay, even when things got complicated. We both signed it, but this time it wasn't legally binding, just emotionally. The paper went into her purse, where she kept it for the next 6 months. 6 months after the wedding disaster, Lila came home from work looking nervous and excited at the same time. Her company had offered her a promotion to run their Seattle office, nearly double her salary, but it meant leaving San Francisco. She explained all the details while pacing around my apartment, saying she understood if I couldn't leave my job and friends here. I let her finish her whole speech before pulling out my laptop and showing her the email I'd gotten the week before. A Seattle tech company had offered me a senior developer position with better pay and remote options for when we'd visit her family. Her mouth dropped open, and she just stared at the screen. I'd been secretly interviewing for 3 months, researching Seattle companies, and taking video calls during lunch breaks. She kept looking between me and the laptop, like she couldn't process what she was seeing. I told her I'd practiced calling her babe in a supply closet, and learned her dad's entire football roster, and made up a whole Canadian ranch. Moving to Seattle was actually the easiest thing I'd done for her. She tackled me onto the couch, and we stayed there for an hour just holding each other. That Sunday we told her family at dinner. Oliver started crying until we promised he could visit and see the Space Needle, and maybe catch a Seahawks game. Grant immediately pulled out his phone to research Seattle sports teams and started planning which games he'd fly up for. Claire just nodded, like she'd known this was coming all along, then started making lists of what furniture we'd need for the new place. Harper offered to help us pack and asked if we'd found an apartment yet. 2 months later, we were knee-deep in boxes and packing tape. Lila found the folder where we'd kept all our fake relationship props, the rehearsal notes we'd written, printed texts planning our cover story, staged. Photos from those early family dinners. She held up the original contract, with all its rules and clauses, asking if we should keep this stuff or throw it away. I took the folder and wrote "Origin Story" on the outside with a Sharpie. We packed it carefully between photo albums and other important documents, because even if it started as a lie, it became the foundation for something real. Fake scaffolding that somehow held up an actual relationship. The drive to Seattle took 12 hours straight through. We packed everything that mattered into my car and her SUV, playing the same road trip games we used to rehearse for her family gatherings. Except now the laughter came naturally, without any planning. We stopped for gas and Red Bull, and she bought every snack I reached for without asking, just like she'd been doing for months. The highway stretched ahead of us, and we took turns leading, switching positions every couple of hours, texting each other stupid observations about billboards and weird cars, even though we were literally right there. Halfway through Oregon, she pulled over at a rest stop, and I thought something was wrong with her car, but she just stood there looking at me. "I love you," she said, and my brain short-circuited, because there was no one around to perform for. I kissed her right there next to the vending machines while truckers walked past, and it was the first kiss that was just ours. We reached Seattle as the sun was setting over Puget Sound, painting everything gold, and found our new apartment building tucked between a coffee shop and a bookstore. The place was smaller than what either of us could afford alone, but we wanted to build something together from scratch. Oliver's dinosaur collection was the first thing we unpacked, because she'd promised him his own shelf in our new place. That first night, we were still setting up the bed when her phone rang with a video call from her whole family. They'd gathered at her parents' house for an impromptu goodbye dinner and wanted to show us what we were missing. "Distance doesn't change family," Claire said, and Grant held up a beer to toast us through the screen. Then, Grandma Ellis took the phone and looked straight at me through the camera. "You showed up as an employee and left as family," she said, and I felt my throat close up. We promised to visit for Thanksgiving and ended the call with everyone waving and talking over each other. 3 days later, a package arrived with no return address, but I recognized Serena's handwriting immediately. Inside was a note that made my hands shake. She wrote about starting therapy, learning to want her own happiness instead of taking everyone else's, thanking us for the wake-up call at the wedding. Under the note was a beautiful wooden frame with 2 spaces, one for a photo and one for a document. We put our favorite real picture from Oliver's birthday next to our original fake contract, the one with all its rules and payment terms. And the contrast told our whole story better than words could. 3 weeks into Seattle life, we had real routines that nobody had to plan or rehearse. Saturday mornings at the coffee shop downstairs, Sunday hikes at Discovery Park, Wednesday night video calls with Oliver where we read him stories and he showed us his new drawings. Everything felt easy in a way that our fake relationship never had, even when we got good at pretending. 6 months after that disaster of a wedding, we were walking through Pike Place Market on a random Tuesday, when Lila stopped so suddenly, I almost crashed into her. She turned around right there between the fish throwers and the flower stands, tourists flowing around us like water. "Let's get married," she said. And before I could process what was happening, I was already pulling out the ring I'd been carrying for 3 weeks. "I was thinking the same thing," I said, and she started crying and laughing at the same time. She said yes while the fish guys cheered and strangers took pictures, and everything about it was messy and public and completely, absolutely real. Well, that's been quite the journey to share with you. Plenty to wonder about after everything we've seen together. I saved for 10 years to buy a home. My cheating sister demanded it for her lawyer, then showed up at my job and tried to ruin my career. My sister Clara, who is 3 years older than me, was married 5 years ago to a truly great guy who we can call James. James's family has a good amount of money, so while they are not super rich, they are very comfortable, and he is also a successful professional who earns a very good income on his own. My sister, on the other hand, has never been very focused on building a career for herself, having worked some part-time jobs before she met James, but she never had any real savings or long-term plans to speak of. Her interests were always more in social activities and enjoying the moment, which is certainly her choice to make. When she and James decided to get married, his parents were quite involved in the planning, and they were paying for a large part of the wedding, while also helping them with a down payment on a house. Because of this financial involvement, their lawyers suggested that a prenuptial agreement would be a wise decision. James was very gentle when he brought it up to my sister, explaining that it was mainly a measure to protect his family's assets and his own premarital savings, and he described it as just a standard procedure for his family. The prenup essentially stated that, in the unfortunate event of a divorce, they would each leave the marriage with the assets they had brought into it. Any wealth they built together during the marriage would be split between them, but his inheritance and pre-existing family wealth were to remain off limits. The agreement also contained a very clear infidelity clause, which specified that if either of them was unfaithful, the unfaithful party would not be entitled to any form of spousal support or any share of the assets that were accumulated during the marriage. My sister was not at all happy about the prenup at the time, and their discussions about it led to a lot of arguments. My mom even got involved in the dispute, telling my sister that she found the whole idea to be insulting. Throughout this entire process, I chose to stay out of it completely, as I believed it was their relationship and therefore their decision to make together. In the end, my sister did sign the agreement because she wanted the big wedding and the comfortable lifestyle that came with being married to James, so she agreed to his family's condition. For 5 years, their life together seemed to be perfect from every angle. They lived in a beautiful house and were able to travel quite a lot, and my sister never had to work because James was very good to her and paid for everything. He bought her a nice car and made sure she had a generous allowance for whatever she wanted, making it look like a very happy marriage to anyone who saw them. He always seemed to love her very much, and he was consistently kind and respectful to our family, including me. I have always been more of a quiet and reserved person, and I have a stable job in a technical field that I have worked very hard for. While I do not make a huge amount of money, I am very careful and responsible with it, so I have been saving aggressively for years with the goal of buying my own small apartment. This has been my single biggest focus in life, and my family knows this well, so they are fully aware that I have a substantial amount of money saved up. About a month ago, this entire situation completely blew up in a terrible way. My sister went out with some old friends from her hometown, and during the evening she ended up meeting her high school ex-boyfriend at a bar. One thing apparently led to another, and she ended up spending the night with him. She was not discreet about her actions at all, and someone who knows both her and James saw them together, who then told James's friend, who then proceeded to tell James. There was simply no way for her to deny what had happened, and when he confronted her, she admitted it to him. James was, by all accounts, completely devastated by the news, and he asked her to pack a bag and leave their house that very same day. He told her in no uncertain terms that he would be filing for divorce immediately, remaining completely firm on his decision because he said he could never trust her again. My sister then came to my mom's house in a complete state of distress, crying and saying that her life was over. For the past month, my mom's house has become the center of all this drama, while my sister has been staying there, spending her days calling lawyers and desperately trying to find a way to challenge the prenup she willingly signed. This all leads to what happened last night, when my mom and sister sat me down for a very serious talk. They explained to me that the lawyers my sister has spoken to have all told her the same thing, which is that the prenup is very strong and ironclad, especially with the clear infidelity clause. They said that fighting it in court would be incredibly expensive, and the chances of actually winning were extremely low. My sister has no money of her own to fund such a fight, as she has no savings at all, despite the generous allowance James had given her for years, because she spent it all on clothes, salon visits and lunches with her friends. My sister then explained that her only remaining option was to hire a very aggressive and very expensive lawyer who claims to specialize in challenging these kinds of agreements. She told me this lawyer believes there might be a small, slim chance to argue for some kind of settlement, but it would require a long and messy court battle to even attempt. Then they finally got to the main point of the conversation, when my sister told me that she needed $50,000 for the legal retainer and the upcoming fees for this lawyer. She looked directly at me, with my mom sitting right next to her and nodding in support, and she asked me to give her the money from my personal savings. I sat there for a moment, just to make sure I had heard them correctly, as I could hardly believe they wanted me to give them the money I had saved for my apartment. The same money I had worked for every single day for the last 10 years. They wanted me to hand it over to my sister so she could try to get money from her husband, the man whom she had cheated on. I told them no. I remained very calm and collected when I just said, "No, I am not going to do that." The reaction to my refusal was immediate and incredibly explosive. My sister started screaming at me and calling me selfish, yelling that I had always been jealous of her and that I was happy to see her suffer now. She insisted that she was my sister, and that family was supposed to help each other no matter what the circumstances were. My mom quickly joined in, telling me that I had a duty to my sister and that I had plenty of money saved, while my sister had nothing. She said I was being heartless and that I was letting her down in her greatest time of need, even going so far as to say that this was all James's fault for having such a horrible prenup in the first place, framing my sister as the victim. I did not argue back with them, and instead, I just repeated that my answer was no. I told them that my savings were for my own future, and that I would not be spending them on her legal fees. I also said that her situation was a direct result of her own actions, because she signed the prenup and she was the one who was unfaithful. These were her choices, and I would not be the one paying for the consequences of those choices. I then stood up from my chair and left my mom's house, and since that moment, my phone has been blowing up with an endless stream of calls and texts from both of them. It has also expanded to include some of my aunts, who have only heard my sister's emotional and one-sided version of the story. They are all calling me selfish and unsupportive for my decision. I have not responded to any of them, and I feel like I am living in a crazy world. I am the one who worked hard and was responsible, while she is the one who made a terrible mistake and is now facing the consequences she agreed to in writing. Yet somehow, I am being positioned as the bad guy in all of this. So, Reddit, AETA for refusing to give my sister the money I saved for my own home to fund her divorce battle. Update 1. I want to thank everyone who commented on my original post, because it was incredibly helpful to see that I am not completely crazy for thinking the way I do. I have read a lot of the comments, and the judgment seems to be overwhelmingly NTA, for which I appreciate the clarity. I still have not engaged with my family since the big blow-up, but the situation has unfortunately continued to get worse, so I thought I should post an update to document what has been happening since then. After I walked out of my mom's house that night, the angry texts and calls continued for 2 straight days without stopping. The messages were not just from my mom and sister Clara, because my mom had clearly called her sisters, my aunts, and had given them a very one-sided and emotional version of the events. As a result, I received long messages from 2 of my aunts telling me how deeply disappointed they were in me. They said that Clara had made a mistake, but insisted that James was being cruel by throwing her out with nothing. They lectured me that family is all we have and that I should be there for my sister, with one of them even saying that money is just paper, but family is forever. It is very easy for them to say such things, since none of them have offered Clara any of their own money, and they just expect me to be the one to provide it. I decided not to reply to any of these messages and instead put my phone on silent as I needed to focus on my work and the constant notifications were making it impossible. After about 48 hours of this continuous barrage, the messages finally stopped, and I thought that maybe they had given up and were going to leave me alone. I was very wrong, because the silence was just a prelude to them trying a new strategy. A few days ago, my sister Clara made a long and emotional post on her social media account. She did not use my name directly, but it was very obvious to anyone who knows us who she was talking about. She wrote a long, sad story about how she was going through the worst time of her life, writing about being heartbroken and abandoned by those closest to her. Then she added a specific part about how some family members, who you would think would be your biggest supporters, can turn out to be the most selfish people of all. She continued by writing about how some people hoard their money and would rather watch their own family drown than offer a helping hand, and she ended it with a vague sentence about how you really learn who your real family is during hard times. Many of her friends, who do not know the full story, left comments full of support for her, writing things about how she was so strong and how terrible it was that she was being treated this way. Some of our shared acquaintances, who follow both of us, have been looking at me strangely lately, and I know it is because they saw the post. My sister has always been very good at playing the victim, which is a skill she has been honing our whole lives. When we were kids, if she broke something, she would cry so convincingly that my parents would end up blaming me for upsetting her, and this feels like the adult version of that same behavior. The social media post was annoying, but I knew I could ignore it. What happened next, however, was much harder to ignore. Last night my mother showed up at my apartment building unannounced. I live in a secure building, so you need to be buzzed in to enter, and around 8 p.m., my intercom rang, revealing it was her. She had not called me beforehand to say she was coming, she just showed up on my doorstep. I did not want to let her in, but at the same time, I did not want her to make a scene in the lobby for all my neighbors to see, so I buzzed her up. The moment she got inside my apartment, she started in on me again, but she did not yell this time, instead trying a different tactic. She was crying as she told me that Clara was not eating and was crying all day long, and she claimed she was worried about Clara's mental health. She said that I was being cold, and that my refusal to help was pushing Clara over the edge. She informed me that James had officially served Clara with divorce papers, and had already canceled all of her credit cards, leaving her completely dependent on my mom, who is retired and lives on a fixed income. She then went on to talk about my savings again, saying things like, "You have all this money just sitting in a bank account where it is not doing anything, while your sister is suffering right now. You can always make more money, but you only have one sister." I tried to explain to her that the money was not just sitting there, but that it was the result of years of personal sacrifice. I reminded her that I did not go on vacations, I do not buy expensive things, and I have worked overtime whenever possible, all to build that fund for my future security. Her demeanor changed instantly when I said that, and the tears stopped as her face became hard. She told me that our father, who passed away 10 years ago, would be ashamed of me for my selfishness, saying he always valued family above everything else. She then accused me of thinking I was better than them, simply because I had a better job and had saved my money, and she said that I was looking down on my sister. The conversation just went in circles from there, but I stood my ground and told her my decision was final. Eventually, she got very angry again and started pointing at things in my small apartment, like my television and my laptop, suggesting that I could sell those things if I really wanted to help. The entitlement she displayed was truly shocking, as she genuinely believes that my personal assets are a family resource pool that she and my sister should have free access to. I finally had enough of the circular argument and told her that I was done with the conversation and that she needed to leave my home. She flatly refused, sitting on my couch and stating she would not leave until I agreed to help my sister. I then told her that if she did not leave, I would have no choice but to call building security. That was when she finally stood up. She walked over to me, and for a moment, I honestly thought she might get physical. Instead, she just got very close to my face and told me that I would regret this, whispering that when I am old and alone with my money, I would remember this moment and realize what I had thrown away. Then she turned around and left, slamming the door hard behind her. I have now blocked my mom's and my sister's phone numbers, and I also blocked my aunts who were messaging me. I know this is a big step to take, but I feel like I have no other choice, because they will not respect my boundaries, and the pressure is not going to stop. I am worried about what they will try next, as the social media post and my mom showing up at my apartment feel like a significant escalation. I feel like this is just the beginning of a longer fight, and while I am not changing my mind about the money, I am starting to realize that my relationship with my mom and sister might be permanently broken because of this. Update. It has now been a few weeks since my last update, and I thought that blocking their numbers and having that final confrontation with my mother would be the end of the harassment. I was very naive to think that, because the situation has since escalated in ways I did not expect, and it has now directly impacted my professional life. After I blocked their numbers, I had about a week of wonderful peace, a quiet time where I could go to work, come home, and focus on my own life. I started to feel like I could finally move on from this whole mess. But then the emails started. They must have realized their phone numbers were blocked, so they simply moved to a different form of communication to get to me. The first email was from my sister Clara, and it was a long and rambling message that was a strange mix of accusations and begging. She wrote that James's lawyer had sent her own lawyer a letter, which officially stated their intention to enforce the prenup to its fullest extent, meaning she would be getting absolutely nothing. The letter also made it clear that they had definitive proof of her infidelity, so there was no point in even trying to fight that fact. Her email went on to say that her lawyer was now dropping her as a client because she could not pay the initial retainer fee, and she was clearly panicking. She accused me again of abandoning her and said that I was siding with James against her. She wrote that I had no idea what it was like to have your whole life pulled out from under you, conveniently forgetting to mention that she was the one who pulled the pin on the grenade. The email ended with another forceful demand for the $50,000, which she called her last chance to get any kind of justice. I did not reply to the email, and instead I created a filter to send any future emails from her, my mom, or my aunts directly to a separate folder that I do not check. A few days after that email, I was at work around 11 a.m. I was in the middle of a meeting with my team when one of the receptionists came over and quietly told me that I had a visitor waiting in the lobby. I was not expecting anyone, so I was confused. And when I got to the lobby, I was completely shocked to see my mother sitting there. I had never told my mother the exact name of my current company, but I suppose she figured it out somehow. I walked over and asked her what she was doing here, making sure to keep my voice low because the receptionist was right there at the desk. My mom stood up and began talking in a loud, dramatic voice for everyone to hear, saying that she was here because her daughter was in a terrible crisis and her other daughter was refusing to help. She claimed that she did not know what else to do, and that she was feeling desperate. My face was burning with humiliation as a few of my colleagues who were walking by slowed down to look at the unfolding scene. I tried to lead her out of the lobby, but she pulled her arm away from me and started crying loudly. She told me that Clara was going to be homeless soon, and that I was sitting here in my fancy office pretending like my family did not even exist. I told her that this was completely inappropriate and that she needed to leave immediately, but she just turned to the receptionist and said, "Can you believe it? Her own sister is suffering and she won't even help. What kind of person does that?" I was absolutely mortified, so I walked her to the door and essentially had to push her out of the building. She stood on the sidewalk, just outside the glass doors, and stared at me with a look of pure anger. I went back to my meeting and tried to pretend like nothing had happened, but it was impossible. My boss came over to my desk later in the day to ask if everything was okay, and while he was very professional about it, it was clear that the incident had caused a significant disruption. I just told him it was a private family matter and assured him that it would not happen again. That evening, I was so angry that I could barely think straight, because showing up at my job was a line I never thought even she would cross. It was such a clear and manipulative attempt to use public shame to get what she wanted. The next day, things managed to get even worse when Clara somehow found my work email address. She sent a new email, not just to me, but she also copied in my boss, whose email is listed on the company website, as well as the general HR email address for the company. The email she sent was a complete and utter fabrication of the truth, in which she wrote that I was withholding family funds that were supposed to be shared between us after our father passed away. She claimed that I was financially abusing my position as the supposed executor of his will, which is not true, as I am not and never was the executor of anything, and was leaving her destitute. To make her story more convincing, she attached a copy of the divorce filing from James's lawyer to prove her desperate situation, painting me as a cold, calculating thief who was stealing from her own sister. This created a massive problem for me at work, and my boss called me into his office immediately with a representative from HR, and they had her email printed out on the table. They were very serious as they told me that these were very grave accusations, and that the company had to take them seriously for legal reasons. I had to explain the entire miserable situation to them. I had to show them the text messages and the previous emails from Clara and my mom to prove the long pattern of harassment, and to show that the story in her email was completely false. I had to explain that there were no family funds, and that the money was my personal savings from my own salary. My boss and the HR representative were understanding in the end, as they could see from the evidence that I was the one being harassed. However, they told me very sternly that I had to make sure this family drama did not spill over into the workplace again. They documented the incident, and while they assured me it would not affect my job, it is now a part of my permanent employee record. I was forced to have a lawyer send a formal cease and desist letter to both my sister and my mother, demanding that they stop contacting me at my workplace. The stress from all of this is unbelievable, because my sister did not just try to embarrass me, she actively tried to damage my career and my professional reputation. This was no longer about getting help from me. This was clearly about getting revenge, because she could not get my money. She decided to try to hurt my ability to make money for myself. I am now looking into what legal options I have if this harassment continues, because I am almost certain that it will. Update 3. Hello again. A lot has happened since my last update, where I described the terrible incident of my mother showing up at my work and my sister emailing my boss. The legal letter that I sent seemed to work for a short while, as the emails and direct contact stopped for a time. However, the conflict has now escalated into something physical, and frankly, quite frightening. After the incident at my job, I made a conscious effort to completely wall myself off from them, and I went so far as to change my personal email address. I also tightened my social media privacy settings to the maximum level possible, and while it felt like I was living in a fortress, it seemed necessary for my own peace of mind. I focused on my work and on my plan to buy an apartment, and I actually put in an offer on a small place, which was accepted. For the first time in months, I felt a real sense of forward momentum in my own life. That sense of peace was completely shattered last weekend when we had a cousin who was getting married. I was very hesitant to go to the wedding because I knew my mother and sister would be there, but the cousin getting married is someone I have always been close to, and I did not want to miss her wedding because of their drama. I thought that we could, as adults, at least be civil in a public setting for a few hours for the sake of our cousin, but this turned out to be a significant miscalculation on my part. I arrived at the reception hall and did my best to keep a low profile, finding a table with some of my friends where I tried to just blend in. I saw my mother and Clara across the room, and I could feel them watching me. For about an hour, nothing happened, and they stayed on their side of the room while I stayed on mine, so I started to relax a little bit. Then, during a quieter moment when the band was on a break, Clara started walking deliberately towards my table. She was holding a glass of red wine, and her face was set in a hard, angry expression. As she approached, my friends at the table all tensed up, as they know parts of the story of what has been happening. Clara stopped right in front of me and did not say anything at first. She just stared at me with an intense look. Then she started talking. She said that she had seen on social media that I was buying an apartment, which a mutual friend must have mentioned. She then said that it must be nice to be buying a home while she was about to be kicked out of my mom's house because my mom can no longer afford to support her. I did not engage with her provocations and just looked at her, telling her that this was not the time or the place for this conversation. Her eyes narrowed at my response, and she said, "You have no heart. You are just like our father. Cold and selfish." The mention of our father, especially in that context, was a very low blow, and it was the same line my mother had used on me before, which seems to be their go-to weapon. At that point, I stood up from my chair and told her I was leaving, as I did not want to cause a scene at my cousin's wedding. As I turned to walk away, she did something I never would have imagined in my wildest dreams. She threw her entire glass of red wine all over me. The dark liquid covered the front of my dress, which was a light color and was instantly and completely ruined. The entire table gasped in shock, and people at nearby tables turned to look at the commotion. I was in shock for a second, but then an incredible amount of anger washed over me, and I turned back to face her. Before I could say or do anything, she lunged at me and started trying to scratch at my face, all while screaming about how I had ruined her life. It was a complete and total public meltdown in the middle of the wedding reception. My friends and a couple of my cousin's groomsmen jumped up and managed to pull her off of me while she was still screaming and struggling against them. My mother then rushed over, but she did not come to control her daughter, she came to defend her actions. She immediately started yelling at me, asking me what I had said to set Clara off, trying to blame me for being physically attacked by her. The scene devolved into pure chaos, and the bride, my cousin, was in tears, watching her wedding get destroyed. Her new husband looked absolutely furious at the disruption. The wedding was completely ruined by their behavior. Security from the venue eventually came and escorted both Clara and my mother out of the building, and they were shouting insults the whole way. I was left standing there, covered in wine and shaking with anger. My cousin and her husband came over to apologize to me, which was absurd because it was not their fault. I told them I was fine, and that I was so sorry that their special day had been ruined by my family. I left shortly after that. The next day, I had visible scratches on my arms and neck from where Clara had grabbed me, so I went to the police station. I filed a formal report for assault against her, and I provided them with the names of the witnesses from my table and the contact information for the venue security team. I am done being passive in this situation, because my sister physically attacked me and my mother enabled and defended it. This is no longer just a family disagreement about money, it has become a serious matter of my personal safety. I have also been in contact with a lawyer about getting a restraining order against them, and that process has now been started. I never in my life thought that I would be taking legal action against my own sister and mother, but their escalating behavior has left me with no other choice. They have harassed me, tried to ruin my career, and now they have physically assaulted me in a public place. There is no coming back from this point, and any possibility of reconciliation, no matter how remote it might have seemed, is now completely gone. They have shown me who they truly are, and my priority now is to protect myself both legally and physically. Final update. This will be my final update on this entire matter. The events of the past few months have finally reached their conclusion, although it is not a happy one by any means. I am writing this mostly for my own sense of closure, and to document the final outcome for anyone who has followed this difficult story. After the assault at my cousin's wedding, I moved forward with the legal actions that I had mentioned in my last post. The police report that I filed led to official charges of assault being brought against my sister Clara, especially since there were more than enough witnesses who were willing to give statements about what they saw happen. The legal process is quite slow, but it is moving forward as it should. I was also successful in obtaining a restraining order against both Clara and my mother, which a judge granted after hearing my testimony and reviewing all the evidence I provided. This evidence included the emails they sent to my work, the documentation of my mother's visit to my office, and the official police report from the wedding assault. They are now legally required to stay away from me, my home and my workplace, and they are not allowed to contact me directly or indirectly. It may just be a piece of paper, but it provides a clear legal boundary that has severe consequences if it is ever crossed. The closing on my apartment went through without any issues, and I now live in my own home. It is a small place, but it is mine, and, more importantly, it is a quiet place of safety, where no one can show up unannounced to harass me. The process of moving and setting everything up has been a welcome distraction from everything else, and it feels like the one positive thing that has come out of this entire miserable year. The aftermath in our wider family has been grim and sad to watch. My mother and Clara have become completely isolated from everyone, because after the spectacle they made at the wedding, no one is taking their side anymore. My aunts, who were so quick to message me with their disappointment at the beginning, have been completely silent. I heard through my cousin that my mom has been calling them, trying to get them to talk to me on her behalf, or to lend her money, but they have all firmly refused to get involved any further. Clara's divorce from James is now final, and as everyone expected, the prenup was enforced fully and completely. She received none of his assets and no spousal support, and I heard she had to sell the car he had once given her just to pay for some of her initial legal consultations and her basic living expenses. My mother's financial situation is not good either, as she is on a fixed retirement income and simply cannot afford to support a second adult indefinitely. From what I have been told by my cousin, their relationship has become very strained, and they are living together in my mom's small house, where the stress and resentment are constant, leading to frequent and loud arguments. Clara has apparently not made any effort to find a job, and it seems she is still waiting for a magical solution to appear out of thin air. I have not seen or spoken to either of them since the wedding, and my life is much quieter now, though it is also lonelier. My mother and sister, for all their terrible faults, were a significant part of my life, and now that part has been completely amputated.